Chapter 174. Jingwan drank the water and listened carefully. She felt something was wrong. Did something happen? Miss, do you want me to go and have a look? Nanny Gong said. Jingwan shook her head. No need. If something really happened, we'll know in the morning. Something that happened in the middle of the night was definitely not a good thing. It might be some shady business. No matter what the purpose was, whether or not he could find out was one thing. But he was afraid that he would get himself into trouble if he didn't do it well. Nanny, go and rest. You don't have to stay here to watch over me. We're outside, not at home. Miss, sleep well. I'm fine. Although Nanny Gong spoke softly to her, Jingwan knew her insistence. They had been together day and night for more than 2 years. It was enough for them to know each other's temperament. When Nanny Gong was stubborn, Jingwan could not do anything to her. So she had better go to sleep. Jingwan yawned and lay back down. She was not very awake. After Nanny Gong turned off the light, she fell asleep quickly. After that she slept well. Nanny Gong gently fanned Jingwan to make sure that there was a cool breeze. But it was not too fast to disturb her. In the darkness, although she could not see clearly, Nanny Gong still looked at Jingwan. Good girl, after tonight, those demons and monsters related to the prince will be cleaned up. He said that he will treat you well for the rest of his life. Believe him. Although he often does not abide by the rules, does whatever he wants, and is overbearing and bad-tempered, he always keeps his word. You will live a good life. You don't have to rely on the third young master and third young mistress. Good girl, you will live a good life. At this moment, Emperor Li Qingdi was sitting upright in the Li Zheng's house. Although he was not wearing the imperial throne of the imperial court, and was only wearing casual clothes, he still exuded an extraordinary aura, especially the cold air that was emitted from his body, which made people shiver even though it was June. There were quite a number of people present. The nobles and ministers were better off, but the commoners were kneeling on the ground shivering. Not only the common people were kneeling on the ground, but there were also 2 people of high status kneeling in front of Li Qingdi. Why did Imperial Father summon me here in the middle of the night? Li Hongyuan walked in casually from the outside. His voice was a little hoarse because he hadn't woken up yet. At the same time, his displeasure could be felt from his body. Thinking about it, it was reasonable that he was woken up from a good sleep. If it wasn't his father who invited him, he would probably be very angry. Li Qingdi raised his head and glanced at his 6th son. His hair was hanging loosely behind his head, and his coat was casually draped over his shoulders. Under the dim light of the fire, Li Qingdi looked much more docile and harmless than usual, which was full of anger and anger. As his father, Li Qingdi had never seen him like this. Your clothes are disheveled, what a scandal! Li Hongyuan frowned, feeling that his anger was rising again. In fact, he had never slept well. When he slept, the environment was very quiet, and any noise would disturb him. When he woke up, he was very grumpy. These days on the road, he naturally didn't sleep well. At this time, even his father wouldn't be able to get a good look from him. He rubbed his eyebrows and suppressed his anger. Imperial Father, what's the matter? If there's something, say it quickly. This prince still needs to sleep. He glanced at the people kneeling on the ground. Why aren't you sleeping? Are you singing a drama? In his previous life, after he ascended the throne, especially after the country was stable, even if the sky fell and the earth cracked, it would have to wait until he woke up. In this life, the only thing that could disturb his sleep without arousing his anger was probably Jingwan's matter. Being woken up in the middle of the night, no one would be happy. Knowing his temperament, Li Qingdi didn't argue with him at this time. Yuan, sit down first. Noble consort, Su said in a soft voice. Li Hongyuan glanced in the direction of the voice. Imperial Mother, why are you here? Imperial Mother and your Imperial Father don't want to be tormented at this time. But alas! Noble consort Su sighed helplessly. Eunuch Mu and the others brought a chair for him and placed it next to noble consort Su. Li Hongyuan seemed to hesitate for a moment, then slowly walked over with a sullen expression. After sitting down, he directly reached out and pressed his hand to his forehead. He leaned against the chair in an undignified manner, and then closed his eyes. From where Imperial concubine Su was sitting, She could clearly see his slightly furrowed brows. There was a hint of forbearance and sullenness mixed in. He seemed to be quite uncomfortable. Noble consort Su felt sorry for her son. Her son usually slept until he woke up naturally. Waking up in the middle of the night, he must be suffering. Therefore, her anger towards the culprit rose even more. Lord Yuan, how long is your good daughter going to make us wait? Even though Yuan Ruizhong's back was hunched, he seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. He looked dispirited. Although he had only twisted his waist before, he probably wasn't very nimble now, so noble consort Su's anger didn't subside. Noble consort. Yuan Ruizhong's lips moved, but he couldn't say the rest of the words. Li Hongyuan opened his eyes and glanced at him. This old man was already so depressed now. When he knew everything, even if he didn't vomit blood and die, he would most likely have a stroke and collapse in bed. Wouldn't the plan of squeezing him for a few more years be ruined? Li Hongyuan looked away with disinterest. In the entire Qi Yuan, there were tens of millions of people. Couldn't they find a person who could replace him, Yuan Ruizhong? If it was useless, then it was useless. Is Yuan Fengfei causing trouble again? Tell me what's going on first. That little B***TCH has the gall of a bear's heart and leopard's guts. As your future imperial consort, she actually hooked up with someone else. Noble consort Su gnashed her teeth and said hatefully. Yuan Ruizhong's vision turned black, but he couldn't defend himself, and could only gasp for breath. Li Hongyuan paused and then straightened his body, slightly surprised. This is her way of making Ben Wang regret? He sneered. She's really going all out. Looking at the two men kneeling in front of Lu Qingdi. No. One of them could only be said to be a teenager. Then, who is this man, Uncle Zhong, or 11th brother, or both of them? Jin Qinhuang. Yuan Ruizhong trembled all over, looking like he couldn't wait to strangle Li Hongyuan to death. That's why, once Li Hongyuan's mouth became poisonous, even a saint could stomp his feet. Li Hongyuan sneered. She has the guts to do it. Why would she be afraid of others talking about it? Sixth brother, it has nothing to do with me. It's Uncle Zhong, not me, it has nothing to do with me. 11th prince hurriedly distanced himself. He didn't want to be remembered by the terrifying sixth brother. He also made a move on his several imperial brothers who held great power, without any leniency. He himself, this pitiful worm without power and influence, certainly wouldn't be enough to play with him for a round. Speaking of which, 11th prince was also depressed. He was just used to seeing all kinds of beauties around him. Suddenly coming to this kind of place, he met a good-looking and enthusiastic girl, and wanted to taste a beauty with a different flavor. To put it bluntly, he was used to eating exotic delicacies, and suddenly wanted to taste plain porridge and side dishes, just as Jingwan expected when she first entered the village. This girl happened to be from Li Zheng's family. Moreover, speaking of which, he was the one who was seduced. Perhaps she really was blinded by riches and honor, and wanted to achieve good things early. That girl was hungry and couldn't be choosy, and chose someone who seemed to be easy to hook up with, and had a noble status. And a certain prince really willingly took the bait, so there was an appointment at night. Unfortunately, this pair of wild mandarin ducks was just about to fiercely grind each other, when they heard movement, and bumped into another pair of wild mandarin ducks, who were working hard to fight. That feeling was really. Previously, when Lu Qingdi didn't say anything, 11th prince knelt quietly. At this moment, he probably really wanted to prove his innocence to his sixth brother. So he spilled the beans and explained the cause and effect of his experience clearly without omitting anything. Therefore, in the eyes of these unfavored princes, Li Hongyuan's despotic power was more terrifying than Lu Qingdi's power. 11th prince was not yet 14, but since he first had sex, there were signs that he couldn't stop. However, because he was still in the palace and wasn't old enough to marry, he could only fool around with the palace maids around him. Then, he secretly looked at the other palace maids in the palace, even his father's concubines, and swallowed his saliva. It was no wonder that he was so easily tempted by her. After he finished speaking, Lu Qingdi lifted his leg and kicked him. What a good-for-nothing. 11th prince staggered, but Lu Qingdi didn't use too much force, so he knelt down obediently. However, He carefully moved a little further away. In Lu Qingdi's mind, Sixth Prince was also beautiful, but he knew restraint. He was not the kind of licentious person who disregarded his health and dared to play without restraint. His hair was not even fully grown, but he dared to play without restraint. Was he not afraid of hurting his health? After all, he was his son. He had to ask the imperial physician to check his pulse after the matter. However, even if his son took the initiative to do something wrong, it was because he was led astray by others. Moreover, this time, he was obviously seduced by others. So this was all the fault of the other party. Li Zheng, you have raised a good daughter. Li Zheng knelt on the ground, trembling more and more. His daughter was usually proud and arrogant, but who knew that she would do such a ridiculous thing? Your Majesty. He trembled but couldn't say more. The girl wasn't any better. She didn't have the bold enthusiasm of seducing others. Your Majesty, in my opinion, since 11th Prince likes this girl a little, why don't we take her away? There's nothing bad about being a maid. After all, if we punish a girl when we pass by this village, it's equivalent to disturbing the peace here. It's also bad for your Majesty's reputation. What do you think? Imperial concubine Su suggested. Imperial concubine, Su knew the temperament of people like 11th Prince too well. He purely wanted to taste something new. If he didn't eat it, he probably couldn't forget it. After the novelty passed, he would think about tonight and look at the wild flower picked by the roadside. He would only think about how embarrassing it was. It would be strange if this wild flower could have a good life. The way to punish people really didn't have to be so simple and crude. It could be more tactful and wouldn't ruin the reputation. Lu Qingdi pondered for a moment. As my beloved concubine says, "Thank you, Imperial Father. Thank you, Imperial concubine." 11th Prince hurriedly kowtowed. Li Zheng and his daughter didn't know the rules, but he couldn't not understand. That's enough. Scram to the side. Thus, this pair of wild mandarin ducks was let off lightly. However, the other pair wasn't so simple. Old Madame Ruan came late with Ruan Fengfei supported. Behind them was Imperial concubine Su's aunt. It was obvious that she had just washed up and dressed. Ruan Fengfei was originally dispirited and listless because of the shock from the three heads. It could even be said that she had been muddle-headed. Now, even if she had seriously washed up, she had lost all her luster. There was a state where even if it was withered, you could still feel its vitality. There was also a state where no matter how beautiful it was, you could only feel the decay emitting from it. There was no doubt that Ruan Fengfei was in the second state. She was rotten from the inside like a walking corpse moving slowly. When the aunt behind her pushed her to kneel down, she was still in a trance. As for her mother, she didn't seem to be in a good state either. When Ruan Rui saw his wife and daughter like this, he was extremely distressed. He almost burst into tears. Trembling, he got up and knelt beside the mother and daughter. "Emperor, I'm afraid there are other secrets in this matter. Emperor, please investigate thoroughly." His daughter was caught having sex with someone. This had already become an indelible fact. Now that things had reached this point, it was better to completely break up and get rid of it. His daughter was either forced or framed. It was better than shamelessly gaining a reputation for being lascivious. Seeing the officials who had always been loyal to him like this, Lu Qingdi's heart softened. He sighed softly. In that case, let the two of them explain the ins and outs of the matter clearly. Royal brother, tell me first, what exactly is going on? The one who was the most aggrieved right now was probably Prince Zhong. He still didn't know how this happened. He inexplicably became an adulterer. He was only slightly awakened when he was caught. And when he found out about the situation he was facing, he was almost scared to death. Imperial brother. Prince Zhong's lips wriggled. This matter, he didn't know how to say it. He was afraid that no one would believe him. However, he had to say it. Because it was too hot and I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing and turning on the bed. So this younger brother simply got up and walked around blindly. Because the Imperial army was patrolling at night, this younger brother didn't bring any guards. Unknowingly, I walked a little further away. When I heard some noise, I was a little scared and was about to turn back. Who knew that I suddenly smelled a strange fragrance? After that, I didn't know what happened. Then my nephew and the others appeared and attracted the imperial army. Prince Zhong looked vexed. This meant that he was definitely not the one who was scheming. It just happened that he was the one who was being schemed against. Lu Qingdi's brows were tightly knitted. Prince Zhong suddenly became anxious. Imperial brother, believe me. Everything I said is absolutely true. Although this Miss Yuan hasn't married into the family, she is still sixth nephew's woman in name. Even if I ate a bear's heart and a leopard's gall, I wouldn't dare to touch his woman. Believe me, I'm really innocent. He almost cried. Okay, shut up. Lu Qingdi said irritably. Noble consort Su looked at Prince Zhong with an even worse expression. At that time, Sun Yijiao was Yuaner's prospective Wangfei. His son dared to have evil thoughts. Now she was just a prospective secondary consort. Father and son were of the same origin. What did he not dare to do? Lu Qingdi's eyes fell on Yuan Fangfei, who kept her head down. Yuan, what do you have to say? Fangfei, what grievances do you have? Tell His Majesty. His Majesty will definitely make a decision for you. Fangfei, say something Fangfei. Madame Yuan shook Yuan Fangfei and cried uncontrollably. After a long time, Yuan Fangfei slowly turned her head to look at her mother in a daze. Say what? There's nothing to say. Fangfei, Madame Yuan hugged her. Good daughter, don't be like this. Although Yuan Fangfei looked like this on the surface, in fact, her heart was unprecedentedly sober, very sober, including when she was scared to the point that she lost her mind. After this incident, she recovered without any medicine. Perhaps it was similar to the saying that when things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. In the middle of the night, her cousin from her maternal family came to find her. Because the people who served her, including her mother, all knew him and knew that they were close, they didn't stop him and couldn't stop him. He told her that he had been following the carriage. He said that he missed her so much that he almost went crazy. He had a lot to say to her. He was pulled down from the carriage and ordered the servants not to follow. He was a hooligan, and his martial arts were very good. However, Yuan Fangfei didn't care and still trusted him. Not only did he know too many of her secrets, and helped her do a lot of things that she couldn't do in person, but she knew that her condition wasn't very good. When it was quiet around her, the three heads appeared in front of her eyes. She needed to do something to distract herself. She knew the current situation. If she was discovered by others, her end would be very miserable. However, whether it was the fragrance on her cousin's body or his strong arms, it made her feel at ease. Therefore, everything went according to his wishes. Even though there were many torches outside the carriages, he still brought her out. The haystack field next to the village, facing the carriages, was faintly visible under the light of the torches. However, once they entered, they basically couldn't see it. What happened next would be her nightmare for the rest of her life. However, Yuan Fangfei couldn't say anything. Although she didn't know the details of her mother's background, she knew that she had secrets, including her maternal family. Her cousin and her mother might be of the same origin. Her maternal family hadn't come to the capital for so many years, and those who came were secretly doing things. She didn't sacrifice herself for her mother, but rather, if her mother's matter was exposed, it was very likely that it would implicate the whole family. Perhaps the whole family would be executed. She didn't want to throw her life away. Moreover, although her mother cared about her, if it involved the matters behind her, it was very likely that her mother wouldn't let her say a word that could threaten her. Her mother might even kill her first. Mother, let me die. I don't want to live anymore. Let me die. Yuan Fangfei's tears streamed down. Taking advantage of her mother's inattention, she suddenly slapped her hand away, got up abruptly, and rushed towards a tree in the courtyard. That tree wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. It was just that no one would stand under that tree for no reason, so Yuan Fangfei bumped into it head-on. Then her body fell limply to the ground. Yuan Ruizhong and his wife were stunned at first, but then they reacted. Fangfei. That mournful voice seemed to indicate that she was already a dead person. Fortunately, although there were a lot of people in this village, it was still big enough. The neighbors lived relatively far away from each other. Otherwise, this voice would have alarmed the entire village. However, Even so, the few families nearby would have heard it. The husband and wife rolled and crawled over. They hugged the unconscious Yuan Fangfei and cried miserably. Lu Qingdi rubbed his suddenly swollen temples. Call the imperial physician. Because of Yuan Fangfei's strange fate of not being able to be the main wife of the imperial family, Lu Qingdi didn't care at first, but he couldn't bear imperial consort Su's displeasure. With such a fate, there must be something wrong with this person. She was a good mother who doted on her son. She was worried that something wrong would harm her son, so she would whisper a few words in Lu Qingdi's ear from time to time. Even if it wasn't intentional, after a long time, Lu Qingdi's impression of Yuan Fangfei would also worsen. With this bad impression, good things would make him suspicious, and bad things would make him more evil. Yuan Fangfei's suicide attempt didn't make Lu Qingdi pity her at all. If she really died, he probably wouldn't even frown. Imperial consort Su's face was even gloomier. She had seen this kind of little trick many times. There was clearly something wrong with this matter, but she refused to say it. She desperately wanted to avoid this matter. Wouldn't it make people suspect that she was a fickle woman who schemed against men? Where did she put her son? Where did she put the imperial family's face? If it wasn't the emperor who spoke, she would never allow the imperial physician to be called. Little slut, it's best if you die. You're so disgusting. Li Hongyuan looked on coldly from the sidelines. He could clearly see that Yuan Fangfei had bumped into the tree trunk fiercely. In the end, when she was about to hit the tree trunk, she deliberately shifted her position. He was sure that Yuan Fangfei wouldn't die. He only gave the order and didn't know the specific situation. However, it didn't matter. In any case, he had already distanced himself from this matter. Moreover, it was good that she was so tenacious. He wanted to see how long she could last. Then his gaze shifted to the woman who was hugging her. Now this woman was already suspicious. However, it was because of this that she was even more afraid of taking action. After all, once her identity was exposed, she would definitely die without a burial place. As for Li Hongyuan himself, because he didn't want to expose his power for the time being, he didn't kill her ruthlessly. However, even if he was really exposed, Li Hongyuan wasn't afraid. It was just that it would be troublesome to clean up the mess later. He might even implicate the bowls. The only one who could make him worry would always be Jingwan. Moreover, this woman at most managed the Yuan family's backyard like an iron bucket. She didn't extend her hands too far. Yuan Ruizhong wasn't someone to be trifled with. If she really touched his forbidden area, he would immediately wake up. Without Yuan Ruizhong, this big tree, this woman would come to an end. As for those people in the capital, their movements were all under his control. Therefore, in truth, even if there were some small loopholes, he was too lazy to fix them. These loopholes would be ignored or torn apart. The process would be complicated or simple, but the final result wouldn't change. Li Hongyuan slowly stood up. Imperial father, imperial mother, this son will take his leave first. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone present heard it. Lu Qingdi looked at him. How are you going to deal with this matter? Li Hongyuan glanced at his father. Imperial father's words are strange. Naturally, I'll deal with it as it should be. Don't tell me this woman who has slept with countless men still needs this son to carry her back to the residence? The corner of Lu Qingdi's mouth twitched. Don't talk nonsense with this old man. If it's that simple, why would I call you here? Li Hongyuan smiled sarcastically. This son's face has already been ruined 8 or 10 times. At most, the scope of my curse has expanded, and even my concubines have been cursed. The Grand Secretary is your trusted aide, so this son still has to give him face. Yuan Fangfei has nothing to do with this son anymore. As for the rest, Imperial Father can deal with it as it should be. Yuan, don't talk nonsense. This time, it has nothing to do with you at all. Imperial concubine Su's gaze was like a knife stabbing at Yuan Fangfei. Especially when she saw that she was showing signs of waking up with a groan. She couldn't wait to go up and strangle her to death. It's also because of your good nature that you didn't bicker with her. Otherwise, even if she was drowned in the river, she deserved it. Yuan Fangfei had indeed woken up. She had a terrible headache, felt dizzy and heavy, and felt nauseous. Although she wanted to avoid a direct death, In order to make it look real, she naturally couldn't hit her too lightly. Wan Fangfei grabbed her mother's arm tightly and forced herself to open her eyes. Her vision was blurry, but she stared at Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan, if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for you. Impudent, is Yuaner's name something you can call out directly? What, you still want to blame Yuan, for today's matter? Don't think that just because your father is the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet, you can take yourself seriously. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Imperial concubine Su angrily scolded. Wan Ruizhong was also angry, but he could only tell Wan Fangfei to shut up, and then apologize to Imperial concubine Su. Imperial concubine, please don't be angry. My daughter didn't mean it that way. Imperial concubine Su sneered. I don't care what she means. It's fortunate that such a fickle woman didn't enter the family. Otherwise, wouldn't she have directly made my son wear a green hat today? As the saying goes, cultivate one's body, govern the country, and bring peace to the world. There's nothing to say about Lord Wan being an official. However, it's better to put some effort into the family. Everyone says that you married a good wife, a virtuous wife and a loving mother. But in the end, you raised your daughter to be like this. As a daughter, she usually looks good in all aspects, but deep down, she's a lowly person. As a mother, she's dignified and virtuous. Perhaps she's the same kind of person deep down. Imperial concubine. Wan Ruizhong's tone became harsher. Imperial concubine, please don't slander others. There must be a hidden story about my daughter's matter. Hidden story? Of course there is. The hidden story is that she's naturally dissolute and seduced men in her boudoir. Imperial concubine. Could it not be? If she didn't run out on her own, would she be at the haystack? Don't say that she was schemed against and was taken away by others. How many servants in your Wan family say that they're vegetarians? Even if she was schemed against, with so many people, why was it only her who got into trouble every time? In the end, isn't it because there's something wrong with her? Wan Fangfei refused to defend herself, and Wan Ruizhong was rendered speechless by Imperial concubine Su. Lu Qingdi coughed lightly. Beloved concubine, that's enough. Lu Qingdi was simply giving advice after Imperial concubine Su had finished speaking. It was so stifling that it made one's heart, liver and lungs hurt. Zhongqing, go to the Wan family and ask if it's the same as before. Replying to your majesty, this subject has made the decision without authorization. I've already asked. There's nothing unusual with the Wan family. Yu Zhongqing, who was guarding the courtyard door like a guardian, immediately responded. Well, previously, Wan Fangfei was frightened and 3 people were drugged. However, since then there was no one who left her side, but there was nothing unusual. Lu Qingdi couldn't help but suspect that his beloved concubine's deduction was correct. It was already hot, and Wan Ruizhong was sweating profusely. He wanted to ask Wan Fangfei again, but unfortunately he fainted again. Master, can you let it go first? Save her first, save her first. Madame Wan pressed a handkerchief to her forehead and pleaded. Yes, yes, the imperial physician. Where's the imperial physician? The imperial physician had actually already arrived and was huddled at the courtyard door. When he heard Wan Ruizhong's voice, he hurriedly came in and greeted Lu Qingdi and Imperial concubine Su. Okay, quickly go take a look. The scene fell into silence again. This son will take his leave. Li Hongyuan spoke again. Without waiting for Lu Qingdi's response, he directly lifted his feet and left. Lu Qingdi didn't ask him to stay. He turned to look at Imperial concubine Su. Beloved concubine Rua, why don't you rest first? Wait a little longer. Your Majesty, since Miss Wan is unwilling to tell the truth, we can't use torture on her. Let's not talk about the cause of the incident. So many people saw what happened between her and Prince Zhong. It's better to deal with it as soon as possible. My poor Yuan clearly didn't do anything, but he was inexplicably implicated again and again. As she spoke, she couldn't help but cry. Not to mention others. Even Lu Qingdi couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. That evil creature was pitiful? And before, what did she say that he had a good temper? If he was pitiful, then there was no one in the world who wasn't pitiful. If he had a good temper, then there was no one in the world with a bad temper. However, Yuan Ruiz Hong and his wife, as well as Prince Zhong and the others, all looked at Lu Qingdi. Lu Qingdi pondered for a moment. Beloved official Yuan has been loyal to me and worked hard for Qi Yuan. I can't bear to see his good reputation ruined. Imperial brother, you don't have a wife now. You should marry this daughter of the Yuan family. This subject obeys. Prince Zhong always knew what to do in front of Lu Qingdi. Imperial concubine Su slightly lowered her eyebrows and narrowed her eyes. Yuan had ruined her son's reputation, yet he still wanted to retreat unscathed and become a prince consort? Not only did he not trample on Yuan, but he also raised her status and made her a senior instead of a concubine. It wasn't so beautiful even in her dreams. She leaned closer to Lu Qingdi. Your Majesty, have you forgotten the order that Master Liaochen gave to Miss Yuan? With this reminder, Lu Qingdi suddenly came to his senses. Thank you for reminding me. So he turned his head and changed his words. The daughter of the Yuan family is impure after all. She should be a concubine. Yuan Ruiz Hong almost spat out a mouthful of blood. In his opinion, it was obvious that noble consort Su was playing tricks. Obviously, she had forgotten that Li Hongyuan had told him about Yuan Fengfei's fate. Thank you, Your Majesty. It was fortunate that Jingwan was not present. Otherwise, she would have asked the Grand Secretary of the Inner Court to gauge the extent of the trauma in his heart and ask him if he would still be loyal to Lu Qingdi after the way Lu Qingdi treated him. Although thunder and rain were the grace of the emperor, after he gave his heart and soul in exchange for the emperor's thunder, would he really have no complaints in his heart? When Yuan Ruizhong thanked the emperor, at least his heart was not calm. Was he targeting Lu Qingdi, noble consort Su, or Li Hongyuan? Moreover, if Lu Qingdi handled it like this, wouldn't it ruin Yuan Ruizhong's reputation? It wasn't a clever cover-up in the first place. It was equivalent to not having any cover-up at all. If Jin Qinhuang was involved, trying to cover up would only make it more conspicuous. How about this? Lu Qingdi also felt tired and told them to do what they were told to do. After Yuan Fengfei woke up, if she wanted to talk, then she would talk. If she didn't want to talk, then she wouldn't talk. Lu Qingdi also didn't have the patience to pay attention to him. He only told Yu Zhongqing to strengthen the defense and patrols. Every family also couldn't lower their guard. This journey was really not peaceful. The following matters were also handed over to Yu Zhongqing to wrap up. Even if Li Zheng heard something that he shouldn't have heard, to have given birth to such a shameless daughter, he himself also lost enough face. As long as he was smart, he would restrain his family members and not go outside to talk nonsense. It should be known that as a common person, if they were caught criticizing the imperial family, it would be a serious crime. Li Hongyuan returned to his own Qinhuang carriage. Ani quietly went up and knelt on one knee in front of Li Hongyuan. He softly reported the matter. The bridge on the road was broken by them. This was within Li Hongyuan's expectations. He also knew about Yuan Fengfei's cousin. Since I said to bite back, then bite back. Keep the person, it will be useful. It was just that the appearance of Qinhuang Zhong was really unexpected. Yuan Fengfei's decisive choice was indeed her style. There can't be any more mistakes on Wan's side. Master, rest assured. Because Luo Darren and old Madame Luo already know about Master's matter. When they were in the capital, they had already sent guards to the Luo family. Miss Luo has always been surrounded by people to protect her. There won't be any problems. Li Hongyuan closed his eyes. Go down. https://www.bicon.com/11/11807/66533169. HTML chapter error. Click here to report, exempt from registration. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicon.com. Bikugo mobile reading website bicon.com. Chapter 175. Although she was drenched in sweat, Jingwan was still in good spirits. Taking advantage of this time, Jingwan went to pay her respects to her grandparents. Not long after, Luo Jingbo appeared with Sun Yijia. Just like the past few days, it was not easy to see his grandfather every morning, talk to him, and have breakfast together. Because there were a total of 5 masters in the Luo family for this trip, they did not separate the male and female seats. They sat together and spoke without scrupulous etiquette. Instead, they appeared to be affectionate. In these few days, Luo Darren even had a little thought of retiring from his official position and enjoying the happiness of family life at home. However, as soon as these words came out, they were strangled in the bud by his foreign. Luo Darren stroked his beard. The older his foreign got, the more domineering she became. The older she got, the less gentle she became. His position in her heart was also getting worse. Grandmother, did something happen last night? It seemed that there was a bit of noise. Sanija suddenly asked. Was there? I don't seem to have felt it. Luo Jingbue said doubtfully. Sanija gave him a supercilious look. He was like a dead pig when he was asleep. Even thunder couldn't strike him. How could he have heard that little bit of noise? His own wife was getting more and more impolite now. Luo Jingbue touched his nose embarrassedly. Perhaps we don't know yet. If something really happened, we should know later. Old Madame Luo said. The old couple looked at each other and had a tacit understanding. Last night's incident should have alarmed many people. However, the emperor did not summon them. Therefore, those who should not be involved did not join in the fun. It should not be a small matter. Sure enough, before they set off, some rumors spread out. It must be known that Yuan Fengfei changed from Jin Qinhuang's prospective Cifei to his uncle's prospective Cifei. How could it be hidden? However, because they did not know the specifics, and all kinds of guesses were flying around. When it came to this kind of thing, the so-called guesses were naturally not good. Although not everyone could find out the truth of the matter, there were always some people who had special privileges. For example, the princes. After rejoicing in Li Hongyuan's misfortune in their hearts, they began to consider whether they could benefit from this matter. As for Yuan Fengfei, to put it bluntly, she was just a used shoe. To them, she had no value at all. Prince Rui, on the other hand, went to find noble consort Su after a moment of silence. At this moment, noble consort Su was once again the dignified and virtuous noble consort. The way she drank her tea was elegant and noble. Just looking at her was another form of enjoyment. She was completely different from the noble consort Su who spoke harshly and viciously last night. Li Hongming paid his respects. Noble consort Su asked him to sit down. You heard? Yes, but there's one thing I don't understand. Mother's words, would it offend Lord Ruan? If he holds a grudge and defers to someone else, it will be very disadvantageous for us. Ming'er, how old is Lord Ruan? Li Hongming was startled and seemed to understand. Mother is saying, he injured his waist before. When I saw him last night, I could clearly feel that his movements were slowing down. In addition to last night's blow, if he was still young, he would probably be fine. However, he's already old, and his temperament has weakened. Naturally, his endurance is weaker. For the time being, he might not have fallen, but the root of the disaster has already been buried. Before Yuan Fengfei's accident, he might have been able to hold on for a few more years, until the new emperor ascends the throne. Now, he's returned to the capital for the summer vacation. Therefore, there was no value in roping in a capable person, like the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet. There was also no need to fear him. If he was offended, then so be it. Li Hongming curled his lips. So that's how it is. Thinking about it, it's indeed human nature. If this matter doesn't affect him much, then it can only mean that his wife and daughter don't have a high position in his heart. According to his usual style, he will definitely weigh the pros and cons and continue his neutral position. Even towards mother, he might even use the excuse of not bickering with women to drop the matter. What you said is not impossible. However, looking at his appearance, the possibility is less than 10%. Li Hongming nodded. The Grand Secretary's importance to his wife and daughter was obvious to all. On the other hand, Yuan Fengfei has been targeted again and again along the way. Previously, she was so frightened that she almost lost her soul. I'm afraid that last night's incident was not simple. If she was already mentally weak, why would she take the initiative to seduce a man? No one would believe it. If she refuses to say, then all the rumors can only be borne by her. As for who is targeting her, who knows? According to Yuaner's previous attitude, he is the biggest suspect. However, he has always been straightforward, and his likes and dislikes are all on the surface. He disdains such methods and he doesn't have the strength to do so. Regarding Li Hongyuan's words, Li Hongming directly ignored them. For this kind of matter, even if she tells the truth, it won't be good. Let's not talk about other things. According to Uncle Zhong's words, he might be a scapegoat. Wan Fangfei is disfigured and lost her chastity. Uncle Zhong has no real power and won't fight for anything. Lord Wan can't restrain him. Wan Fangfei has entered the Prince Zhongfu and is at Uncle Zhong's mercy. If she makes Uncle Zhong unhappy, she will only suffer. Speaking of which, the reason why she stubbornly refuses to say may not be that complicated. After that, they just chatted and stopped talking about this matter. At this time, Great Elder Princess was also chatting with Lu Qingdi. At that time, I promised Prince Nuazhong to find a new princess who is young, beautiful, gentle and well-educated. Although Miss Wan is flawed and doesn't completely match, since she is just a concubine, it's not bad. Brother, please keep an eye on her. Lu Qingdi slightly raised his eyebrows. Sister, you seem to have a good impression of this Ruan's daughter before. Why do you sound like, brother? A person who is too perfect and excellent in all aspects may not be likable. Lu Qingdi nodded, indicating that he understood. Therefore they were all shrewd people. Even if they didn't see anything, it didn't mean that they didn't feel anything. It didn't mean that they didn't suspect that Great Elder Princess might have liked Wan Fangfei before. But only she knew how sincere this love was. When Wan Fangfei disguised herself, she could deceive the world. How easy it was for a person who came out of the imperial palace to deceive people's eyes or tease people's eyes. Under the circumstances that there was no entanglement, Great Elder Princess might not be stingy to give her that little love. After all, Wan Fangfei pretended a little too much. There was a saying that going too far was as bad as not going far enough. When people didn't notice it, they probably didn't feel anything. But once they noticed it, they would feel it was out of place. Although Wan Ruizhong and his wife were shrewd people, they didn't notice anything. It could only be said that those who were closely involved could not see clearly. Otherwise, Madame Ruan's education should be different. My adopted daughter is the best. Of course, it would be better if she could be more unrestrained. Great Elder Princess sighed softly. That girl is so attractive to you? Lu Qingdi was a little surprised. Yes, but I don't like your sixth son very much. That bastard doesn't deserve my adopted daughter. Lu Qingdi looked a little embarrassed. Although the marriage was decreed by me, it was originally the Luo family who asked for it. You were the ones who forced us to take this step. Don't think that you don't have a share in this, imperial brother. If it were up to me, you have made great contributions inside. If there were other paths, you wouldn't have taken this one. Lu Qingdi didn't deny Great Elder Princess's words. He couldn't let one of his sons become too powerful and make the imperial court lose balance. He wanted Luo Peishan to worry about it himself. But in fact, Luo Peishan's final choice was beyond his expectation. Although there was no better candidate than his evil son to be a shield, his reputation was too bad after all. If not for the fact that he was really desperate, he was very satisfied with the final result. Master Liaochen has approved. They are a match made in heaven, and a good marriage that is hard to come by in 1,000 years. Great Elder Princess snorted softly. Because of this, she didn't say anything more. Otherwise she would teach that bastard a lesson. However, even so, Great Elder Princess still felt that she needed to find time to teach him a lesson. At least, he should restrain himself and stop being such a bastard all the time. Otherwise, no matter how good the marriage was, it might be a problem. Because of Li Hongyuan, the Luo family certainly knew the details. Of course, what happened to Wan Fangfei? Except for the parties involved, only the mastermind behind the scenes knew. Sun Yijia looked at Jingwan and laughed for a long time. Jingwan felt that she was simply neurotic. That smile was simply creepy. Helplessly she asked, "Sister-in-law, what are you laughing at?" "What did I say?" Prince Jean will bring down everyone except you. Sunija giggled again as she spoke. Jingwang was speechless. Who could tell her why her sister-in-law was so different from others after being pregnant? Third brother, drag your wife back as soon as possible. Then, Luo Jingbua said in a very unmanly manner that his wife was the most important person now. Sunija laughed even more happily. She said that it was her sister-in-law who made this result. So after a long time, her sister-in-law climbed over her and abused her. It was she who lifted a stone and dropped it on her own foot. Compared to Sunija's cheerfulness and Jingwan's indifference, Luo Daran and Luo Laoforan had a kind of calmness, as if they already knew it would be like this. There was no other way. Jin Qinhuang had said that he would get rid of the irrelevant people, sooner or later. As for the things that happened to Ruan Fangfei along the way, it didn't matter if it was Prince Jin's doing. She could use such a sinister and vicious method to plot against her own granddaughter. What she was suffering now was just giving her a taste of her own medicine. It wasn't worthy of pity or sympathy. Wan Ruizhong's health had problems. Madame Ruan was very clear. Originally, it was normal to have some small problems at an old age. Even if he was seriously ill, it was understandable. However, she knew that she needed to rely on Ruan Ruizhong, this big tree. Before her goal was achieved, he couldn't fall. Therefore, on the issue of his health, she spent more effort than teaching Ruan Fangfei. Of course, she wasn't the kind of person who did good deeds without leaving a name. Wan Ruizhong's love for her was also a big factor in this. Leoi, go rest. Xia will look after daughter. Wan Ruizhong shook his head. How could he sleep now? Master, we can only rely on you now. If you, how can we live? As she spoke, she couldn't stop sobbing in a low voice. The most distressing cry would never be a loud wail. Wan Ruizhong stared blankly and unconsciously clenched his fist. He was still the Grand Secretary of the cabinet. His wife and daughter were being trampled on like this. If he fell, would they still have a way to live? Then I'll have to trouble Madame. Madame Ruan forced a smile. It's not hard. You and daughter are the people that Che cares about the most. For you, Che should do anything. Even if I have to risk my life for you, Che is willing. It was truly sincere. Wan Ruizhong was incomparably moved. Rest assured, madam. As long as this husband is here, I will never let you. He stopped abruptly. The words that followed were stuck in Wan Ruizhong's throat. He couldn't spit them out. The greatest damage had already been done. If he said that he would never let them be humiliated, wouldn't that be slapping his own mouth? Xia understands Leoi's meaning. Xia believes in Leoi. That gaze was still unwavering trust and reverence. In fact, Wan Ruizhong couldn't be blamed for being dazzled by this woman. After 10 to 20 years, that gaze was still the same as before. Any man would be bursting with self-confidence. Although he didn't say anything when he left, one could tell his mentality from his expression. That was the determination and conviction to fight for the most important people. Therefore, Li Hongming and noble consort Su both missed this point. There was a saying that a mother is strong. Then why couldn't there be a saying that a father is strong and a husband is strong? Because they cared too much and had to be strong in order to hold up the sky for them. Probably, in the mother and son's knowledge, there was no such man. Wan Ruizhong left and walked far away. Madame Ruan's expression faded. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Speak. Who took Miss out? She couldn't be blamed for thinking this way. It was because of the previous matter. She deliberately arranged for people to protect Ruan Fangfei, so that not even a drop of water could leak out. Even if there was someone behind the scenes, it was impossible to take down everyone one by one without being discovered. The only possibility was that it was an acquaintance that they all trusted. Ruan Fangfei willingly went with them. Master, it's young master. Ruan Fangfei's wet nurse respectfully said. Impossible. Madame Ruan subconsciously retorted. Her voice was a bit sharp. Then, she realized that she had lost her composure and calmed down. I watched Brother Ping grow up. He dotes on Fangfei like she's in the palm of his hand. Are you sure it's him? If it was really him, who appeared and lured Fangfei away, she really couldn't blame them for not protecting her well. The wet nurse knew what she meant and couldn't help but frown. Master, this servant didn't find any flaws. I believe that the others are the same as this servant. Otherwise, how could they let him take Miss away? Even if it had been a long time, they didn't suspect anything. Madame Rowan's face was a bit gloomy. She didn't believe that it was her nephew who did it. But because of this, things became more troublesome. The other party's people disguised themselves as people they were familiar with, and could do it seamlessly. This meant that the other party might be quite familiar with her and her subordinates. The enemy knew a lot about you, but you knew nothing about the enemy. This feeling was like being played in the palm of one's hand, but one couldn't even touch the edge of the other party. It was terrible. Wan Fengfei lightly snorted. It seemed that she was about to wake up. You may leave. Check everyone carefully. Yes, master. Madame Rowan originally thought that her daughter would wake up quickly, but when she heard the painful sound coming out of her mouth, as if she was shouting no, her hands unconsciously grasped the bedsheets. Her palms were already scarred, but she didn't feel any pain at all. Her head was slightly shaking. Her face and lips were bloodless. More concentrated beads of sweat. The white cloth covering her forehead was obviously soaked. It was obvious that she had fallen into a nightmare that was hard to wake up from. Fengfei. Madame Rowan kept patting her face. Wake up, wake up. Wan Fengfei slapped the hand on her face away. She sat up and retreated far away. Fengfei, I'm your mother. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Madame Rowan hurriedly comforted her, but didn't touch her again. She was afraid that it would cause an intense reaction. Mother? Wan Fengfei's vision was a bit blurry. Before she could see clearly, she felt dizzy and nauseous. Her body subconsciously leaned forward, lying on the edge of the bed and retching. Her mother hurriedly patted her back. When she calmed down a bit, she poured her a cup of water. After drinking the water, Wan Fengfei felt a bit better. She weakly leaned on her mother's body. Fengfei, tell your mother. What happened? Say it. You'll feel better if you say it. It would have been better if she didn't say it. Once she said it, Wan Fengfei immediately went crazy. Wei Nanping, that bastard, he better not let me see him. Otherwise, I'll skin him alive and chop him into minced meat to feed the dogs. Her relationship with her cousin, Wei Nanping, was far more intimate than that of ordinary cousins. Since the age of 13, they had been honest with each other. Other than the bottom line, they had done everything they should and shouldn't do. No matter what, he would listen to her. If she said no, even if the arrow was on the bow, he would stop. In her eyes, he was like a loyal and obedient dog by her side. As long as she gave him a little sweetness, he would do anything for her. Even if she asked him to die once, he would not hesitate to stab himself. However, it was this kind of dog that dared to humiliate her and trample on her last night. Not only him, he brought a group of people. In the dark, she didn't even know how many people there were. Their mouths were full of filthy words. They used the dirtiest and foulest words to humiliate her. They said that she was worse than the lowest and dirtiest prostitute. Especially Wei Nanping. He said that those women's bodies might be dirty, but their hearts were at least clean. Unlike her, she was rotten to the core and smelled terrible. All her struggles were to no avail. She couldn't even say a single word from the beginning to the end. The person who made her feel at ease and reliable had dragged her into hell. Even now, when she thought about it, she couldn't help but feel fear. Her body trembled. Her mother hurriedly patted her back to comfort her. Fengfei, that's not your cousin. Think about how good your cousin is to you. If you lose even a strand of hair, his heart will ache. How could he hurt you? You know the art of disguise. Mother once showed you a human skin mask. Someone must have pretended to be him just to coax you out. Wan Fengfei endured the discomfort and tried her best to remain calm. She sat up straight and looked straight at her mother. She revealed a sarcastic and cold smile. Mother, are you saying that I'm stupid? I can't even tell the difference between a person I'm so familiar with and a fake? No, Fengfei, listen to Mother. No one recognized him, so it's not your fault. Not my fault? Why? Could it be that someone thinks that I'm to blame for this? Also, why do you think that those idiots can't tell the difference between the real and the fake? Even I can't tell the difference. How could she be wrong? Who else could be more familiar with that man than her? At that time, she also felt that this wasn't her cousin. Her cousin would never treat her like this. Who are you? Who are you? Who sent you? Who sent you? However, the heart-wrenching pain didn't only come from the body, but also from the heart. It turned out that being bitten by a dog she raised was such a pain. Since that was the case, as long as that face humiliated her, as the owner of that face, she had to be prepared to die without a burial place. It could be seen how conceited and cold Wan Fangfei was. Wan Fangfei's face was cold and ferocious. Old Madame Wan was startled. Her daughter seemed to be a little strange. It seemed that it was out of her control. However, she immediately thought of the harm she had suffered. It was probably because of this that she dug a dead end and couldn't think it through. She would slowly enlighten her in the future. Okay. Whatever you say. The next time I see your cousin, Mother will help you teach him a lesson. Heh, Wan Fangfei sneered in her heart. Was she fooling her like a 3-year-old child? Also, cousin, do you know how those girls who were humiliated by you felt? It's like you are now. Experience it well. Who said that this kind of thing could only be experienced by women? Men could also experience it. Mother, do you really think that it's just a lesson? Don't you want to know what happened? I'll tell you. I'll tell you bit by bit. Mother, you have to listen carefully and seriously. Wan Fangfei had her usual gentle and elegant smile. She told her mother the process of her being humiliated by a group of men in the haystack. As she spoke, she couldn't help but giggle. She thought that she would forget. It turned out that she remembered it so clearly. Even for her, at this moment, she felt that her daughter's smile was particularly frightening. Normally, when a girl encountered such a thing, they would not have such a reaction. She was startled. Could it be that the stimulation was too fierce, and she lost her mind? Fangfei, don't be like this. Don't scare Mother. No matter who it is, Mother will avenge you. I'll avenge you. Wan Fangfei looked at her mother with sparkling eyes. Are you serious? No matter who it is, you'll avenge me? Yes, Madame Wan said with unusual certainty. Then let me calculate. Wan Fangfei tilted her head, revealing an unusually innocent expression. Those people last night should all be from this village. Her sand-like rough hands continued. Mother, let's directly slaughter this village. However, before sending them on their way, as long as they are men, first chop off their hands. Then cut off the roots of their descendants. Remember, it's all men, part of their age. Or you can deal with the younger ones in front of the older ones. That scene must be very interesting. Madame Wan narrowed her eyes. Okay. Then it's Luo Jingwan, that bitch. If it wasn't for her. Wan Fangfei began to go crazy again with a ferocious face. Okay, what my daughter endured, Mother will let her taste 10 times, 100 times. Then it's Li Hongyuan. He lied to everyone. In order to leave a position for that bitch, he used me to eradicate his previous fiancés. Who does he think he is? Does he really think that he can lie to me all the time? Perhaps it was because she really cared that when she saw Li Hongyuan's attitude towards Jingwan, she had a series of unreasonable conjectures. Or perhaps it was just an excuse for herself to be treated coldly. In short, Wan Fangfei did find some truth. Madame Wan also thought that she was talking nonsense. This conjecture was absurd, ridiculous, and impossible. It was more reasonable to say that Luo Jingwan attracted Li Hongyuan in some way. Okay, it's his honor that Fangfei likes him. But he doesn't know what's good for him. When the time comes, Mother will catch him and let you deal with him. Then in front of him, find 10 or 100 men for Luo Jingying. Mother, men are too easy for her. Just use animals. Wan Fangfei seemed to have thought of that scene and laughed heartily. Okay. Madame Wan touched Wan Fangfei's hair, but the expression on her face was not so relaxed. The possibility that the enemy in the dark was Li Hongyuan was getting higher and higher. She was in a passive and weak position. It was too difficult to make a move on him. Perhaps the moment she made a move on him, the power she had painstakingly cultivated would be destroyed. Her daughter was very important, but compared to the great cause, forget it. She had to appease her first. And those so-called noble ladies, who are they? How dare they say that I'm not? Strip them all naked, and throw them on the street. Then, they will all commit suicide out of shame. Ha ha ha. As you wish. Then Fangfei, what about Prince Zhong? What happened to him? Wan Fangfei paused. She didn't know if those people did it on purpose, but in short, her injuries weren't that serious. When the group of beasts had all left, she reluctantly got up and moved step by step. Every step seemed to be able to exhaust all of her strength. Suddenly, she found two figures entangled with each other not too far away. It was impossible for her to go back, without anyone knowing. The people who schemed against her wouldn't allow it. And Prince Zhong who swaggered out. As Jin Wang's prospective Si Fei, I don't know who defiled me. What does Nyang think of my end? Ordered to become a monk and locked in the family temple? If the situation is better, I will marry far away from the capital and my future is unknown? Or let Li Hongyuan use this as an excuse to kill me directly? Wouldn't it be better to pull someone who just happened to appear and has some status as a scapegoat? As long as I am still in the capital, there is still a chance for revenge, right? Having a Prince Zhong to charge and break through enemy lines for me is also not bad. Although he is a good-for-nothing, he is completely not enough to fill the gaps between Li Hongyuan's teeth. Saying that she schemed against Prince Zhong, she finally sent herself, who was riddled with scars, away. She would not let this old man go. However, he was still useful now. Just wait, she would also turn him into a dog under her. However, with this lesson, she would never be bitten by a dog again. If it tried to bite her, then she would kill it and stew it with dog meat. Madame Wan was also quite gratified. In that kind of situation, she did not lose her mind and did not lose her sense of propriety. She calmed down and looked for countermeasures. She did not teach her in vain. When comparing two evils, choose the lesser. Irreversible things must be minimized. Fangfei did a good job. Wan Fangfei pulled the corners of her mouth. She knew that it was a compliment, but no one would want such a compliment. Listening to it was simply more disgusting than direct sarcasm. Speaking of which, this was not the Ruan family in the capital. The place occupied by the Ruan family's motorcade was only so big. There were also many people coming and going. Even if it was under your eyes, you may not be suspicious. If you met a capable person with particularly good hearing who openly eavesdropped, if he knew that his private words were passed to other people's ears, he would probably only suspect that there was a mole around him, and then a ruthless purge. When Li Hongyuan heard the report, an and eunuch Mu wished they could dig a hole and bury themselves. Mother, what were Wan Fangfei's bones made of? Hadn't she learned enough from the lesson? The idea is not bad. If we don't use it on her, it seems to be unfair to her. They could not hear the change in his mood at all. But because of this, it was even more terrifying. After all, if they showed it, at least they could know how high his anger value was. Perhaps there was a possibility of avoiding danger. But now they did not dare to act rashly. If they were not careful, they would accidentally draw out his anger. They were not the Luo family's third young lady. When the master was angry, he would not care who they were, and would die without a burial place. They lowered their heads and did not dare to breathe. Send the heads of the people who massacred the village to Madame Ruan, and then send Ruan Ruizhong's 2 sons to her bed. By the way, tell Uncle Zhong that Wan Fangfei is already his woman. Although she has to wait until they return to the capital, during this period of time in the summer palace, he does not need to restrain himself. She is just a woman who does not need to spend money, and can be played casually. Naturally, the more exciting the better. If I am happy, I may even give him some benefits. Li Hongyuan said lightly. There was no doubt that he was showing his claws and teeth to Madame Ruan. Yes, they packed up and set off again. With the matter of Wan Fangfei and Prince Zhong, the matter of the 11th prince picking wildflowers was not even worth mentioning. There were even some busybodies who ridiculed the 11th prince for being a playboy. Anyway, they did not feel that he did anything wrong. As for that girl, she did not even look him in the eye. After Jingwan heard it, she just kept silent. Everyone had their own thoughts, and she had no right to ask. She did not know how long that girl could live. After all, she was just a girl from the countryside. In terms of scheming, how could she be compared to the palace maids who could crawl to the side of the princes? However, when the villagers knew that Li Zheng's girl left with the carriages, many of them were so jealous that their eyes turned red. They did not expect that the usually good-natured person would be so calculative. Even if he was Li Zheng, there were still many people who blurted out sour words. Li Zheng, on the other hand, had to suffer in silence. He could only respond with a stiff smile. Perhaps due to his guilty conscience, he unconsciously lowered his head. Well, perhaps some of them were still thinking about last night's delicious taste. Little did they know that a group of hunters who wanted to destroy their entire village was waiting in the dark for today's night. Digression. https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/66537171. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will handle it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.beacon.com. Mobile version reading website, mbeacon.com. Chapter 176. After leaving the village, the road had already been paved with the help of some villagers. Therefore, the speed was similar to normal. After making a circle, they finally returned to the main road. After a few hours, Lu Qingdi ordered them to speed up. Even the lunch was hastily prepared. Even the emperor could make do with it. Even if others wanted to complain, they could only hide it in their hearts. No one would be stupid enough to complain at this time. Jingwan even thought that Lu Qingdi might have been scared by the situation along the way. That was why he was in such a hurry to reach the destination first. In this way, even if they were delayed, they were not much later than the original estimated time. Not to mention the others, even Jingwan breathed a sigh of relief. To be chosen as the site for the construction of the palace, it definitely had a unique advantage in many aspects. Not to mention other things, after entering the land, she could clearly feel that the temperature had dropped a little. When she finally landed, Jingwan estimated that the temperature had dropped by at least 5 or 6 degrees. Although this number was not obvious, to be more specific, it was the difference between 37 or 38 degrees and 32 or 33 degrees. The latter would definitely make people feel much more comfortable. Sometimes, one could only feel it when they personally experienced it. After getting off the carriage, Sun Yijia could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, we followed. This place is indeed much more comfortable than the capital. When her feet touched the ground, Jingwan took 2 deep breaths. Then she smiled at Sun Yijia. Sister-in-law, quickly go and rest. Don't talk about your sister-in-law. Quickly go and rest yourself. Madame Luo said in a bad mood. Jingwan held Madame Luo's arm and shook it coquettishly. I know, grandmother. Let third brother settle the matters. We all go and rest. Jingwan did not hold back at all, and threw her bag to her brother. Luo Jingbua did not mind at all. Little sister is right. Grandmother, you all go and rest. It's not a big deal. I'll take care of it in a while. Originally, he had already sent people over to tidy up the place. He only needed to casually make some arrangements for the housekeeper to be in charge of the allocation, and the other servants to be in charge of the arrangement. Another advantage of making arrangements in advance was that everything was done properly. After entering the door, he could take a comfortable bath and relax. Then he could sleep. It wouldn't take too long, even if it was only an hour. After eating something, he would be energized. However, the heavens were not on her side. Just as she was about to step through the door, she was told that Duchess Ding was here. Not to mention Jingwan. Most of the people in the Luo family equated Duchess Ding with a troublemaker. After all, they were in-laws. Even if they did not like it, they still had to put on a show. Lord Luo went in, but Madame Luo turned back. Jingwan was a junior, and Sun Yijia and Luo Jingbua were her daughter and son-in-law. It was even more impossible for them to leave. Duke Ding's mansion was directly carried in a sedan chair. When she saw the person who came down from the sedan chair, Jingwan was shocked. Compared with the graceful and dignified Duchess Ding, she was now old and thin. She seemed to have aged more than 10 years. Even her back was a little stooped. She stood trembling slightly and needed someone to support her. She was just an ordinary old woman. If she didn't know her identity, she might not have recognized her when she suddenly saw her. She didn't know if she deliberately showed off something. She was wearing Duchess Ding's clothes, but she didn't know that she couldn't hold up the clothes. It looked a little empty, like a clown who stole other people's clothes. She sighed in her heart, and couldn't help but feel less disgusted by her. Jingwon hadn't seen her since she broke off her marriage with Sun Yilin. She was sick, so it was not Jingwon's turn to visit her. Except for her brother and sister-in-law, who went back to visit her a few times. Only her mother went to visit her once. However, that time, it was probably not a good thing, because her mother didn't go for long, and she didn't look well when she came back. When Sun Yijia asked, her mother just forced a smile and said, "It's nothing. Don't mind it, Sun Yijia. After all, she is your mother." Everyone knew that Madame Zhang must have been bullied, but it was better not to mention her character. After Sun Yijia married into the Luo family, she got to know her better. Jingwon also told her that she didn't need to treat her as a mother-in-law, except for the proper respect. She still needed more people to protect her. However, the backyard of the Luo family should be peaceful now, so she could live her own life. Sun Yijia told her directly, "Mother, you don't have to go in the future." Madame Zhang agreed with a hint of joy. Although Jingwon was already used to it, she was still speechless again. Fortunately, Sun Yijia didn't say anything to save her face. Otherwise, she might have offended others with her expression. Many people had the same mentality. Even if there was something wrong with their family, they wouldn't want others to agree with them even if they said it out loud. They should listen to the opposite and do a good job of saving face. Of course, if they did this to those who were really close to them, it would hurt their feelings. Sun Yijia didn't care. On the contrary, she actually liked people like Madame Zhang. Compared with those who had to beat around the bush, Madame Zhang was simply too cute. When Sister One got married in the future, there was no harm in her protecting her for the rest of her life. Along the way, Sun Yijia didn't go to see Duchess Ding, but Duchess Ding's temper was getting weirder and weirder. Especially when Sun Yilin was away from the capital for the first time on an errand. Before he left, Duchess Ding made a scene and refused to let him go, as if he would never come back after leaving the capital. However, Sun Yilin was not a good boy. Even if Sun Yilin used the name of being unfilial to bully him, he just sneered. He knew his elder brother's mentality too well. It was nothing more than that he couldn't sit in the position of the heir for a long time. The people who originally relied on him were more and more dissatisfied with him, and Sun Yilin was getting better and better. Now he even went out of the capital on an errand. Sun Yilin had been an official in the imperial court for many years, but unfortunately, he just muddled along. His position was not small, but he had no real power. He could climb to his current position only by relying on the name of Duke Ding's mansion. Therefore, he certainly wanted to stop Sun Yilin. Sun Yilin left very quickly, as if he didn't care that he was unfilial at all. Sun Yijia went to see her. 8 out of 10 sentences were about her son. When she wanted to talk about him, Sun Yijia ignored her and didn't interrupt. She fulfilled her duty and left. Now she had just settled down. Instead of resting well, she came to the courtyard of the Luo family's summer palace, wearing Duchess Ding's dress. What did she want to do this time? Madame Luo was also surprised in her heart, but she didn't show it on her face. "What's the matter, in-law?" She went straight to the point, but her tone was calm and not harsh. Duchess Ding acted as if she didn't see her, and looked directly at Sun Yijia. "Yijia, come back with me." Sun Yijia was very angry. What did her mother mean? Her in-law's grandmother was talking to her. She was an elder, but she ignored her like this. She didn't even care about the basic etiquette and rules. How could she offend her mother? She even asked her to go home with her mother. Everyone knew that a married daughter's in-law's home was her home. If she went back to her mother's home, she could only be a guest. She was fine on her own. Her mother's words made it sound as if the Luo family had wronged her. "Mother, what nonsense are you talking about? I'm the daughter-in-law of the Luo family. The summer palace of the Luo family is here. Where do you want me to go with you?" "Yijia, don't be afraid. I'm here. I'll take care of everything for you. You don't have to be afraid of the Luo family." Sun Yijia's face darkened. What was she talking about? Mother, go back quickly. Don't make a scene here. Ijia, I know you've been wronged in the Luo family. They despise your disfigurement and are mean to you. They covet your dowry and won't let you go back to see me. They think I can't get up, so they bully and humiliate you. Don't be afraid. I'm here now. What can they do to you? At worst, we can divorce and go home. What's the harm in Ding General Manor taking care of you for the rest of your life? Ijia, not to mention the master of the Luo family, even the servants' faces were livid. Sun Ijia was so angry that she cried. How could her mother say such things? Yes, she was born in a prestigious family and was the wife of Ding General Manor. How could she shamelessly fabricate such nonsense? The summer palace was built closely together. The neighbors were all high-ranking officials and nobles. At this moment, they were either settling in or had just arrived. Many people were already craning their necks and pricking their ears to watch the show. If those who didn't know the situation heard these words, they would really think that the Luo family was such a family. Their reputation would be tarnished by her. Sister-in-law, don't cry. Don't be angry. Jingwan was worried about her health and the child in her belly. Ijia, don't cry. Don't be afraid. I'll support you. Enough. Sun Ijia roared hoarsely. What do you want? What do you want? Am I your daughter? Why are you treating me like this? I'm doing very well in the Luo family. I'm doing much better than before I got married. Divorce. Go back with you. Take care of me for the rest of my life? How much do you hate me so much that you can't bear to see me living well? She was so angry that she felt a sharp pain in her lower abdomen. The color on her face quickly faded. The masters and servants next to her were shocked. Outsiders didn't know, but they knew that she was pregnant. Originally, the Luo Rongping incident was over, and they were looking for an opportunity to announce the good news. They didn't expect to encounter such a thing. Luo Jingbua hurriedly held her. Ijia, are you okay? Don't scare me. Jingbua, my stomach hurts. Sun Ijia grabbed him tightly. My child. Mama Gong didn't need to be told. She asked someone to pull Jingwan away and stepped forward to check Sun Ijia's pulse. She knew from her expression that the situation was very bad. Third young master, you have to find a doctor quickly to protect the baby otherwise. Doctor, where's the doctor? Which family has a doctor? Hurry up and take a look at my sister-in-law. Jingwan was very anxious. In the blink of an eye, because of Luo Rongping, and because of little Madame Wang, the Luo family's doctor didn't accompany them. How could the onlookers not know what was going on? Obviously, the baby was affected. Anyone with discerning eyes could see that Duchess Ding was looking for trouble. This was a good time to curry favor with the Luo family. Needless to say, the family with a doctor quickly called for one. However, Duchess Ding suddenly grabbed Sun Ijia. Ijia, you're pregnant. How come I don't know? Did the black-hearted Luo family forbid you to go home and report the news? Hurry up and go back with me. Otherwise, you and the baby will be harmed by them. She couldn't even stand steadily. She didn't know where she got the strength from, but she couldn't shake her off. The doctor stood aside and couldn't get involved. Let go of me and get out of here immediately. Luo Jingbo was very worried, but he met such a crazy woman. If it weren't for the fact that she was his mother-in-law, he would have already punched her with his clenched fist. His respect for her status had all turned into bubbles at this moment. He even wanted to kill her. The scene was so chaotic, and the servants brought by Duchess Ding were also very regretful. If they had known that things would turn out like this, they wouldn't have dared to bring her here. The people who served her closely were also very worried. If this went on, she would really lose her baby. At that time, the enmity between them would be huge. However, their madam's temper was really too strange now. The people who used to know her best couldn't help her. They were worried that something would happen to her, so they could only persuade her nicely to let go. However, she didn't listen to them at all. She kept shouting, "Ijia, go back with me." Sun Ijia's hand had already been pinched by her. Luo Jingbo was no longer polite to her. He directly reached out and pried her hand away. His strength wasn't light at all. Son-in-law, be gentle. Get out of here. Get out of here. This cold and stern reprimand was accompanied by a stick. In the eyes of others, It was old Madam Sun who was impolitely hitting with her cane. The surrounding servants were hit and turned their heads. When they saw that it was their old madam, they immediately shrank their necks and retreated to the side. Duchess Ding's hand happened to be pried open by Luo Jinghua. In fact, it was also thanks to Nanny Gong. She clasped the acupoint on the inner side of Duchess Ding's arm, making Duchess Ding loosen her grip uncontrollably. Nanny Gong then let go at the right time. Old Madam Sun grabbed her hand that was about to scratch Luo Jinghua, threw it away, and slapped her. Duchess Ding, who couldn't even stand steadily, was naturally knocked to the ground. She didn't know whether she was stunned by the slap or for other reasons. In short, she looked at old Madam Sun in a daze. There was a moment of silence. However, old Madam Sun didn't even look at her. "Where's the doctor? Hurry up and take a look at my granddaughter." The doctor on the side hurried forward. After taking her pulse, his heart skipped a beat. "It would depend on luck to carry this baby. Hurry up, carry her into the room. Hurry up and lie down." Luo Jinghua waved away the servant girls and older female servants who came up to help. He directly carried Sun Yijia in his arms and almost trotted to the door. The servants and the doctor hurriedly followed him. Jingwan originally wanted to follow them in, but she couldn't help. On second thought, she immediately asked the servants to take out all the medicine they had prepared in case of an accident. There were some common medicines that could be used to protect the fetus. However, the prescription of a set of herbs might be different for each doctor. Therefore, Jingwan was not at ease. What if they didn't have all the herbs they had? What if they didn't have any with the other families? If they happened to need it, they would be in a hurry to find the medicine and waste time. Thinking about this, she immediately walked to Madame Luo's side and told her her thoughts. Hearing this, old Madame Luo immediately ordered people to do it. This matter actually happened very quickly. The process didn't take long. Luo Peishan sat down and took a sip of tea. When he heard that something had happened outside, he hurriedly came out. When he saw Luo Jinghua's back, he frowned and walked out of the door. When he heard old Madame Luo's words, he said, "When you go to ask for the medicine, tell each family that as long as they share the medicine, regardless of the amount, this old man owes them a favor." A favor from the Minister of the Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs was really coveted. Old Madam Sun looked at the Luo family's actions, and then looked at her own. She was still her biological mother. How could the difference be so big? "Send your wife back. In the future, without my permission, she is not allowed to take half a step out of the courtyard. And all of you, you know that she is sick, but you still let her do whatever she wants. When you go back, each of you will be flogged 10 times. Old Madam Sun had been in charge of this mess for most of her life, and really didn't want to care about it anymore. She originally thought that she could make trouble at home, but who knew that in the blink of an eye, she would cause such a mess. If she hadn't asked one more question, and inexplicably put on her clothes when she was about to reach the summer palace, she was worried that she would cause trouble, and rushed over to take a look. It didn't matter if she died, but she was afraid that her death would affect the reputation of the Luo family, Yijia and her husband. No matter what the reason was, as long as something happened to her, the Luo family would be in trouble. As old Madam Sun's mother-in-law, it didn't matter how she punished her. Even if she died, it didn't matter if she was accused of forcing her daughter-in-law to commit suicide. Anyway, she was already a person who was buried up to her neck. After dealing with Duke Ding's wife, old Madam Sun walked to the Luo family and said, "In-law, it's my fault. I should have detained her long ago. My daughter-in-law is hysterical. She thinks whatever she thinks all day long, and can't listen to others. Don't take what she said to heart. As for Yijia, we all hope that she and the child will be well. Our family is sorry to your family." Old Madam Sun couldn't go on. None of the Luo family's great-grandchildren had been born yet. The baby in Yijia's belly was only the second one, so the Luo family naturally valued it. If the baby died, it would not only be the culprit's fault, but also the entire Duke Ding's mansion's fault. Speaking of which, old Madame Luo married before her, but her eldest son was much younger than her. Therefore, she had several great-grandchildren, but her eldest one hadn't been born yet. She didn't know whether it was because she didn't have a child in the early years, or because she had difficulty conceiving. Even though old Madame Sun spoke kindly, old Madame Luo's expression was still not very good. In-law, you don't have to say anything. Let's see if Ijia's child can be saved. If the child can be saved, I'll take care of it. Unless her mother dies, I won't let her go back. This happens to be what she wants. Our Luo family won't bear the reputation in vain. Old Madame Sun nodded. She has a bunch of people to serve her, so she doesn't need Ijia to do anything. Taking care of the baby is the most important thing. Even if you allow her to go back, I won't allow it. I only have one granddaughter, Ijia, and I'm also waiting to hold my great-grandson. I'll go back first. In-law, why don't you come in and have a seat? No, I just arrived. I have something to do anyway. Besides, Ijia is here, so I won't add to the trouble. I just want to trouble you to tell me about Ijia's situation later. I'll come to see her then. As for the rest, just let her take care of herself, and don't think too much. Don't make life difficult for herself and her child, because of her mother. If that's the case, then she should completely give up. Although the last sentence was vague, everyone understood what she meant. It was nothing more than telling son Ijia not to count on her mother anymore. If she didn't care about her mother at all, and didn't take her seriously, then she wouldn't be sad. Alright, I won't send you off, in-law. Old Madame Sun nodded. As she turned around, she glanced at Jingwan and said, It's our brother Lin's bad luck, but it's only right that he's blessed to have such a mother. Fortunately, Ijia married into your family. I'm content that one of the siblings is blessed. I don't have any regrets in my life. She then turned around and left. Speaking of which, old Madame Sun had a lot of children and grandchildren. Moreover, she had 4 generations living under the same roof. However, in Jingwan's eyes, her back looked a little bleak. She heard that recently, she often stayed in the Ding General Manor and didn't go out. She was in a state of old age and loneliness. Obviously, a person like her should be spending time with her grandchildren and enjoying the happiness of a family. The doctor first stabilized son Ijia's fetus with silver needles, and then hurriedly prescribed medicine. It turned out that Jingwan's idea was prescient. The Luo family's medicine was indeed missing one. The servant hurriedly brought it back. After the doctor confirmed it, it was immediately taken away to be boiled. Even so, Jingwan was still cautious and asked Nanny Gong to confirm it again. It was not that she thought that the family who distributed the medicine would do something, but there were too many secrets in the backyard. Jingwan was afraid that the family who distributed the medicine would do something wrong without her knowing. What if it was used on her family by accident? Jingwan had to be careful at this time, and couldn't be careless. In this aspect, Nanny Gong was naturally very good at it. Sun Ijia's fetus was saved for the time being. However, according to the doctor, it was only temporary. Before the fetus was completely stabilized, if she was a little emotional, she would have a miscarriage. Moreover, it was the kind that could not be saved. She had to be more careful in the future. After all, a lot of blood was seen this time. After sending the doctor away, Sun Ijia was comforted by the Luo family in turn. In addition to her grandmother's words, she thought about her almost lost child and forced herself to stabilize her emotions. Gradually, she really calmed down. In fact, without her grandmother's words, she had completely given up on her mother. She no longer thought about why her mother became like this today. After all, it couldn't be because of her. In her mother's eyes, she was not that important. At this time, old Madame Sun had already learned the whole story from the servants. Every word that Duchess Ding said made her feel a little itchy in the palm of her hand. After all, the slap just now was too light. Listen to what she said. She was actually talking about her own attitude towards her daughter-in-law, wasn't she? Duchess Ding had been married to Duke Ding's mansion for decades. Old Madame Sun might be strict, and might have held the power of the inner residence for a long time. But she had never been mean to Duchess Ding, let alone hit her. This time, she was slapped in public in the middle and late years of her life. It could be said that she lost face, and couldn't protect her chastity in her later years. There were quite a few people from Duke Ding's mansion who came out this time. There were not many things in the mansion, but there were many idle people. They didn't work, But they had a lot of problems. They couldn't bear the heat or the cold. A thread on their clothes could rub their skin. If the material of the food was slightly inferior, it could defeat their appetite. Sometimes old Madam Sun couldn't help but sneer. If it were up to her, she would tie them all up and starve them for 8 to 10 days. They could even eat tree roots. If they were stripped of their clothes in the middle of winter, not to mention clothes with threads, even withered grass could be wrapped around their bodies. However, old Madam Sun was too lazy to pay attention to them. They were all drunk and couldn't see the decline of Ding General Manor itself. They couldn't see the emperor's dissatisfaction with Ding General Manor. They only saw that there was an empress standing there. They only saw that Prince Kong was the eldest son of the emperor and the legitimate heir to the throne. How ridiculous it was. Just wait and see. There would be a day when they would live on the streets. Of course, this was actually a good thing. When the new emperor ascended the throne, exterminating the whole family and exiling them 3,000 miles away was a joke. If she lived longer, she might be able to live until then. If she lived shorter, she would probably have nothing to do with it. If she lived longer, she would live longer. At this moment, a large number of people were here to laugh at her. They would take the opportunity to seize power and gain some benefits. Otherwise, they would hit her when she was down. Old Madam Sun didn't frown. She just looked at Duke Ding, her eldest son. Her eyes didn't seem to be looking at her son. She said coldly, "You personally send some medicinal materials to the Luo family. I hope you won't be as stupid as your wife." If old Madam Sun really put on airs, not to mention the people of Duke Ding's mansion, even the most senior elders of the entire Sun family had to respect her. The others would be terrified and shrink their heads like quails. Therefore, even Duke Ding had to respectfully respond at this moment. For some reason, Sun Yibin went to the Luo family with Duke Ding. It was Luo Peishan who received them. Luo Jingbua had to accompany his wife at this moment, and didn't have time to pay attention to them. Seeing a pile of things sent over, Luo Peishan laughed. However, his words were full of sarcasm. He scolded people without using any dirty words, which made the father and son blush and smoke coming out of their 7 orifices. However, they couldn't find any words to refute. If you refuted one sentence, he could return 10 sentences to you. Moreover, he was in no hurry, and was very gentlemanly. If you ignored the content of his words, it would even make people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. It was not that Duke Ding hadn't seen Luo Peishan's power in the imperial court, but at that time, he wasn't targeted at himself, so he didn't have such a deep understanding. Sometimes he listened with relish. Now in the future, he would no longer laugh at those who were scolded by Luo Peishan until they were speechless. He no longer felt that they were incompetent. No matter how angry he was in his heart, he could only endure it. He couldn't lose his temper. Otherwise, he would definitely be kicked out of the house. At that time, he would really make a mortal enemy. In the end, he couldn't bear it anymore and asked to leave. However, because he thought of his mother at home, he asked about Sun Yijia's situation. However, the saddest one was probably Sun Yibin. He came with a purpose, but in the end, except for the initial greeting, he didn't say a word. When he came out, his whole face was wooden. It was not his fault. He was not qualified to enter the imperial court, and had not seen Luo Peishan's power at all. He went back to report to old Madam Sunday. Old Madam Sun didn't say anything. She glanced at Sun Yibin with a gloomy and angry look. More importantly, he unconsciously drooped his head because of the blow. Old Madam Sun didn't comment. This grandson of hers had a bad heart since he was a child. He didn't walk the right path, but walked the crooked path. If he could straighten out his mentality, he wouldn't be like this. Mother Yijia is pregnant. It's a happy event. Should I send something else? You don't have to worry about that. Do what you need to do. Duke Ding choked and twitched the corners of his mouth. Yes, then I'll take my leave first. As the mainstay of the Empress and Prince Kang's faction, when the Empress and Prince Kong were not around, he should be more active. He must not let the hearts of the people in their faction scatter. He must firmly tie them down. Sun Yibin naturally had to run actively in order to stabilize his position, because he couldn't even get the position of heir of the Duke. If he wanted others to support him, He naturally had to be more courteous to the wise and spend more money. Of course, it was getting late, and they were tired along the way. Everything could only wait until tomorrow. Old Madam's son, on the other hand, went to see her daughter-in-law, Duchess Ding, after dinner. Everyone around her had been beaten, but because she couldn't leave people around her, they could only serve her with injuries. At this moment, when they saw Old Madam's son, they were like mice seeing a cat. "All of you get out. I have something to say to your madam." One by one, they hurriedly squatted down and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Duchess Ding leaned against the big pillow. Her eyes flashed, as if she was considering whether to get up and salute. Old Madam's son didn't care about it at all. She sat down next to her and said, "I know. You always carry the things at the bottom of the box with you. Take them out and give them to Ijia. Consider it your compensation to her." Duchess Ding's lips squirmed, but she didn't say anything. Old Madam's son was calm and composed. In terms of spirit and appearance, she was even younger than her daughter-in-law now. "If you don't take them out, I'll have someone send you back to the capital tomorrow. Of course, I'll also bring the divorce letter I wrote to you. Then, I'll tell the world about your great achievements." Duchess Ding's pupil shrank. "Mother, you actually want to divorce me?" https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653175. HTML. Please click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Biku Pavilion Mobile Version Reading Website, mbicken.com. Chapter 177. Mother, I don't know what you're talking about. Duchess Ding lowered her gaze. Old Madam's son was not angry that her words did not work. Since she had come today, she was sure that she would not return empty-handed. The relationship between her and her daughter-in-law was a real mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. They had never crossed the line for decades. They were as close as mother and daughter. They had never even pretended to be close. Old Madam's son seemed to be interested at this moment. "Do you think that it was third Miss Luo who drove a wedge between you and your son? Is she the one who caused you to become like this today? Then what about your daughter? Not only did she not stand on your side, but she also became close to your enemy. She is an ingrate. In that case, why do you care about her? The moment you learned that she was pregnant, you were not happy because you were about to have a grandson. Instead, you felt that it was better not to have any vile spawn with the bloodline of the Luo family." Duchess Ding remained silent at the beginning, but later she shook her head and denied it. Old Madam's son sighed helplessly. "You really think so? And you are so deeply involved that you can't extricate yourself. I've seen people who are stubborn, but I've never seen someone like you who refuses to turn back. You worked so hard to raise Brother Lin, and put all your hopes on him. He suddenly cared about another woman more than you. You felt sad and couldn't accept it. This is actually quite normal. Many mothers have such a mentality, but you can't wait to tie him to your belt. Is this the way you care about your son? Oh, when did you hit your head? Have you become stupid? When he really got married, would he treat his wife as a decoration? Would she have no use other than giving birth to children? Would she immediately turn back and snuggle in his arms to drink milk after he and his wife were done with the rites of Zhougong? In that case, why do you have to find a wife for him? You can just take him with you for the rest of your life. When you die, take him with you. You can even ask to be buried in the same coffin. He has been in your belly from the beginning, and will be by your side until he dies. Look, how good is that? Except for you, no one else can be so close to him." Old Madam's son was not in a hurry. She even deliberately lowered her voice towards the end. Duchess Ding's face turned green and white. She widened her eyes in disbelief. These words almost directly said that the mother and son had lost their morals. "Mother, he is your grandson. How can you say that about him?" Her voice was sharp, and her expression was as if she wanted to strangle this old witch who had slandered her son. Old Madam's son calmly adjusted her sleeves. "Did I say anything about Brother Lin? I'm just saying what you think. I'm talking about you. Brother Lin has always been a good child. He's smart, outstanding and clean. He's also a normal child. When he reaches the right age and meets the right person, he'll also fall in love with her. It's just a pity that the child has a mother who's mentally ill. We didn't realize it in the past. Hence, he lost his wife and his happiness. Now, he only wants to escape from the home that made him feel warm. Perhaps dying outside is better than living in a home that only makes him feel pain. Nonsense. Nonsense. It's not like that. It's not like that. Duchess Ding shouted crazily. She did keep a close eye on Yilin, but she didn't want him to be seduced by a vixen. It didn't matter who he liked, as long as he didn't care so much. As long as it didn't have to be one person, he could have as many women as he wanted. She just didn't want him to be addicted to love and ruin his future. What was wrong with that? How could he make her sound so filthy and despicable? What do you think will happen if outsiders know that Brother Lin has such a mother? All the results are in fact only one thing. That is, his whole life will be ruined. Except for those ugly women with many flaws, who will be willing to marry him. Were you very happy at that time? After all, he was abandoned by everyone, and you became his only one. Old Madam Sun was still indifferent. She said the most unacceptable words for her daughter-in-law. Nonsense. Shut up, shut up. What right do you have to tell me to shut up? You dared to do it, but I can't talk about it? You're too ridiculous. A straight foot is not afraid of a crooked shadow. I didn't do it. Old Madam Sun smiled. A straight foot is not afraid of a crooked shadow? Unfortunately, if I say there is, then there is. Because she was thin, Duchess Ding's widened eyes became more frightening. Yilin is your grandson. How could you do this? How could you be so vicious and want to ruin him? Yilin has a bright future. How dare you, how dare you? Why wouldn't I dare? When I was young, I did a lot of evil things. I took at least 8, if not 10 lives. It's a pity that you didn't have the chance to see it. However, no matter how vicious I am, I can't be compared to you. It's said that even a vicious tiger doesn't eat its cubs. You even hurt your own flesh again and again. You're worse than a beast, aren't you? Just because of resentment against an outsider, you can vent your anger on your own daughter, and even harm your own grandson. Now I'm actually wondering whether you really care about Yilin, or are you using him as a pretext to make a fuss? Otherwise, since it's all in the past, you should mend your relationship with your son. But look, what are you doing all day? His relationship with Ijia has always been close. If he were to find out that you, his mother, almost harmed his sister and his nephew, would he break off all ties with you? Ijia probably doesn't have any feelings for you now, but it probably doesn't matter to you. Everything you've done for her was based on her value, and to pave the way for your son. So if she's gone, she's probably gone as well. Before Ijia got married, I felt that the little talent for mother-daughter relationship existed in you. You should have really planned for her. But it turns out that I still underestimated how fickle you are. Sometimes I really don't know what people like you are thinking. Is your brain different from that of ordinary people? Take mending the relationship as an example. It's said that you should do something pleasing. What you did was as if others didn't hate you enough, and you didn't push your own people far enough. Could it be that this is your way of redeeming yourself? You're really maverick. Or can I put it another way? You're so stupid that no one can compare? Duchess Ding stared at old Madam Sunday. She had been married for decades, but this mother-in-law had never said so much to her. But every word was like a gem, piercing her heart and lungs. Suddenly, she pounced forward and reached out to strangle her. Madame Sunla got up and stepped back unhurriedly. Duchess Ding fell to the ground at once and struggled awkwardly. The people outside heard the noise and communicated in their hearts. Finally, they couldn't help but come in. When they saw the scene, they were stunned for a moment and didn't know what to do. Old Madame Sun turned around and said, "Come in and help your madam up." Hearing this, they didn't dare to be negligent and quickly came in. However, they subconsciously avoided old Madame Sun carefully. They only felt that this old madam was really too terrifying. The madam who had exhausted all of them was like a clown baring her fangs and brandishing her claws in front of the old madam. But the old madam didn't even frown. After they settled her down, old Madame Sun immediately told them to get out. Duchess Ding wanted to reach out and hold them, but the one who was within reach was directly pushed away. After being stunned for a moment, she began to make a scene again. Old Madam Sun poured a cup of warm tea from the table and only took a sip. Then, she walked to the side of the couch and poured it all over her head. I've only done this kind of thing a few years after I got married. I haven't done it for decades. Now that I'm rewarding you, you should feel honored. The tea dripped down. Not only did it wet her hair, but it also smeared her face with water. She couldn't even open her eyes. Old Madam Sun put the cup back and turned back. Have you calmed down? Duchess Ding wiped the water droplets on her face and remained silent. Old Madam Sun asked again. Calm down, mother. I've calmed down. Duchess Ding felt an inexplicable chill. She trembled and hurriedly spoke. It's good that you've calmed down. I tried to talk to you nicely, but you didn't listen and forced me to use tricks. Perhaps I was too kind to you in the past and didn't teach you well. That's why you've become like this today. What she said before was called talking nicely. Then what are you like when you don't talk nicely? The corners of Duchess Ding's mouth twitched. After marrying into Duke Ding's mansion for decades, today was the first time she saw this side of her mother-in-law. Now that she thought back to what she had just said, she was really out of her mind. It was no different from courting death. She drooped her head and shrunk her shoulders. However, no matter what kind of character you have today, I'm too lazy to talk to you anymore. Where's the thing? There's a sandwich under the sandalwood makeup box on the dressing table. Duchess Ding's lips trembled. Old Madam Sun walked over, picked up the makeup box, turned it over, and knocked on it. There was no hollow sound, but it was different from other places. She moved it to the candlelight and looked at it carefully. Then she found a way to open it. It turned out that it was tightly stuffed with cork. No matter how it was shaken, it wouldn't make a sound. Old Madam Sun took out the brocade bag, just rubbed it through the cloth with her hand, and then put it in her sleeve. The makeup box was restored, and then she left without saying a word. During the whole process, Duchess Ding just stared blankly. However, she could only stare and couldn't say a word. She had a hunch that if she really dared to refuse, she would really be kicked out of the house. Yilin would really be dragged into hell by her. Her maiden family would also be ashamed of her. Everything would fall apart. It turned out that her mother-in-law, who she thought was kind, could even abandon the reputation of Duke Ding's mansion and her favorite grandson when she became ruthless. As for whether her mother-in-law would give the thing to Yi Jia or not, she was not qualified to ask. She was not qualified to ask either her mother-in-law or Yi Jia. Old Madam Sun, who was about to reach the door, suddenly turned back. She stood 3 steps away from Duchess Ding and looked down at her condescendingly. Her face was no longer kind, but really cold. In the mud pile of Duke Ding's mansion, you can sit steadily for decades. It shows that you're not stupid. It only shows that Yilin and Yi Jia are actually the same. When they don't touch you, they can dote on you, and they can care about you very much. When they go against your will, they can also give them up. Don't use for his own good as an excuse. Don't flaunt yourself as a great and selfless person. You should know that your nature is exactly the opposite. However, no matter how much I say, it's all nonsense. Yilin has probably told you a lot. At that time, you may reflect on it. Later, you will only remember that you were disobedient and unreasonable to the extreme. If it's useless to talk, then do it. If you behave, I'll let you live out your life in Duke Ding's mansion. If you don't, I'll let you die in a mass grave and feed you to wild dogs. It's not a big deal to find a corpse to be buried in the ancestral grave of the Sun family instead of you. This is your last chance. Think carefully. Otherwise, even if I die first, I'll kill you before I die. Don't think about it. Pretend to be obedient now and stir up trouble after I die. You can rest assured that no matter what happens, I'll make arrangements for you properly. She didn't care about the mess of Duke Ding's mansion, and it didn't matter if it was completely destroyed. However, she couldn't bear to leave Yilin and Yi Jia alone. Duchess Ding watched her back disappear at the door. It was already dark outside, and she couldn't see anything clearly. She shuddered violently and couldn't help but collapse. After death, people paid attention to returning to their roots, being buried in the ground for peace, and enjoying the incense of their descendants. This mother-in-law would rather find a random person to cut off all her paths. In terms of means, who could compete with her? Duchess Ding thought that she had run Duke Ding's mansion for many years. Although she didn't have an airtight control, at least she still had most of the power in her hands. However, looking at the attitude of the people who served her, and were regarded as her confidants in front of the old madam, she knew that what she thought was just a joke. You can only be in power when he doesn't take power seriously. When she takes power seriously, you can stay away from her. Before the current emperor ascended the throne, there was also a bloody battle. Her father-in-law was much more powerful than her husband, the current Duke Ding. In the end, Duke Ding's mansion was still controlled by her mother-in-law. Did she think that she was really kind just because she had seen her kind face for too long? Did she think that she wasn't good at scheming, just because she didn't make trouble for her? Her body went limp and she stared blankly at the void. Was she really that kind of person? But it turns out that you care about yourself the most. You don't allow others to ignore you. You don't allow others to disobey you. Once you cross your bottom line, you'll go crazy and lose your rationality. You don't care about the consequences, and only think about yourself. Sun Yilin's words echoed in her ears again and again. She used to treat them as wind and forget them as soon as she turned her head. But now, they seemed to be engraved in her heart. She tried hard to deny it, and told herself that she really only cared about Sun Yilin. However, the truth was that if she really cared about him, she should help him marry the girl he liked, let him wear a happy smile, and let him give birth to a big fat grandson for her as soon as possible. She would hold her grandson while the husband and wife would watch with a smile from the side. Imagining such a scene, tears slipped from the corners of her eyes uncontrollably and disappeared into her hair. And Ijia, she was supposed to be able to hold her grandson in a few months. Because the place was small, each courtyard must be limited. Duke Ding's wife was ill, so she was not arranged to live in the same courtyard as Duke Ding. Moreover, Duke Ding was particularly disgusted when he saw her now. At the gate of the courtyard, old Madam Sun saw Sun Yibin, and the maid carefully held the lamp. Sun Yibin hurriedly bowed. "Grandmother, did you come out from Mother's place? I'm going to see Mother." As he spoke, he frowned and hesitated for a moment. "Grandmother, how is Mother?" Old Madam Sun twitched the corner of her mouth, and the sarcasm was very obvious. Sun Yibin hurriedly corrected himself. "You are an elder to Mother. It's right for you to say a few words to her. I don't mean anything else. Put away your hypocritical face as a filial son and virtuous grandson. Do you think I don't know that you hate your mother for favoring your younger brother? When they were not on good terms, you fanned the flames and made your mother's illness worse. Then you turned your head and gloated while blaming your younger brother, saying that he was unfilial. In your eyes, I'm also an old woman who flaunts her seniority." She glanced at the scar on his forehead. "At that time, my face was smeared with blood. How could you be so magnanimous to not care about it? You've long wanted to cut me into pieces, haven't you? Get lost as far as you can. Don't be an eyesore in front of this old woman." Sun Yibin's face was also green and white. It was very interesting, but at the same time, he was a little confused. Grandmother's temperament was actually relatively cold. It was really the first time she spoke so rudely, and her attitude could even be said to be fiery. Was this really the grandmother he knew? It was as if she was a completely different person. "Grandmother, I was wrong at that time. Did I ask you to speak?" Sun Yibin was fiercely choked, as if a fishbone was stuck in his throat, and he could neither spit it out nor swallow it. In fact, those who knew old Madam Sun when she was young would know that she was really not a good-tempered person. She was just good at cultivating her chi, and there were few things that could make her emotional. She knew what the outcome of Duke Ding's mansion would be, so she was too lazy to care. When she was really unhappy, she could beat you to death with a stick. It should be known that when Lu Qingdi was young, he was pressed to the ground and beaten by her. Old Madam Sun didn't look at him again. "Since you're sick, you should rest well, and lock the door of the courtyard." He completely banned Duchess Ding's feet, and also isolated the disgusting flies outside. Then, Sun Yibin looked at the closed courtyard door. It was normal to lock it at night, But could the door still be open during the day? Then he looked at old Madame Sun's back as she walked away. It was a little blurry with only a lamp, but her straight back was firmly moving forward step by step. Was his grandmother going to take power again? Because after Duchess Ding's wife fell ill, the power in Ding General Manor had been dispersed. Everyone, including his wife, had tasted the bad sweetness. If his wife benefited, he would naturally benefit. Logically speaking, he was the eldest son of the first wife. Since his mother was ill, the power should be handed over to his wife. In fact, it was already sullen enough that his power had been divided. Now, he had to take it all back. Naturally, no one was willing to do that, but who dared to disobey their grandmother's words? He had to think of a way to see if there was any room for negotiation. Sun Yibin rubbed his eyebrows hard. There were so many things happening outside, and there was no peace at home. She was really an old woman. He turned around decisively and left. His mother? Haha. The next day, old Madame Sun's descendants who came to greet her were all stopped outside the door. She seemed to be living the same life as when she was in Duke Ding's mansion in the capital. They didn't know whether to feel relieved or worried that the old madam had other tricks waiting for them. No matter what they thought, old Madame Sun took the things she had prepared and was ready to see her granddaughter in person. Logically speaking, when a married grandaunt was pregnant, even if her mother couldn't go, her sister-in-law should go to see her. However, old Madame Sun didn't have the idea of asking Sun Yijia's sister-in-law to go, no matter who it was. Sun Yijia took the medicine and slept through the night. She was very careful when she slept at night. However, if she did not sleep well, it would affect her. Luo Jingbua told her not to worry, and that he would watch over her. When Luo Jingbua said that he would watch over her, he really meant it. He really did watch over her all night, instead of letting the maid do it for him. In fact, a lady like Sun Yijia had been trained to sleep. Her sleeping posture had always been very good, so she didn't have to worry about turning over too much. However, in order to make her feel at ease, Luo Jingbua didn't mind. However, when she saw Luo Jingbua's slightly swollen eyes, she felt sorry for him and told him to go to sleep quickly. She wouldn't let this kind of thing happen again. Jingwan came over early to accompany her. She didn't play the zither much. At this time, after protecting her fingers, she was going to pick them up during this period. She called it prenatal education for her future nephew or niece. Of course, even if she hadn't experienced it, she knew that it was a little early for her to do prenatal education at this time. But it didn't matter. She still needed to practice. She could even play the song Ambush on all sides. Therefore, even if it was just for practice, the song she chose was simple. Naturally, there wouldn't be any intermittent situation. At most, she would play some parts wrong. At the end of the song, Sun Yijia showed a miserable expression. Sister Wan, on the day of Great Elder Princess's birthday, was it really you who played the zither? Compared with that time, the gap between now and then is simply like the gap between a beginner and a master. Or are you actually teasing me? Jingwan's face darkened. Was it so exaggerated? She felt very good about herself. Sun Yijia seemed to understand Jingwan's meaning, and was extremely speechless. Sister Wan was really extraordinarily thick-skinned. When Madame Luo sent someone to lead Madame Sun over, Jingwan was still continuing to torture Sun Yijia. Jingwan got up and saluted. Sun Yijia also wanted to get up, but Madame Sun hurriedly asked her to lie back down. Lie down, lie down. Now is not the time to talk about these superficial formalities. Seeing that Sun Yijia's condition was better than expected, Madame Sun also breathed a sigh of relief. It could be seen that the Luo family really took good care of her. Grandma, why did you come in person? You could have sent someone else. What nonsense are you talking about? I want to see my granddaughter. How can I be disliked? Sun Yijia hurriedly took her hand. I know I was wrong. How can I be disliked? I don't mind. I can't ask for more. Jingwan saw that the grandmother and granddaughter were affectionate and smiled. After all, they were blood relatives. It was good to have a biological grandmother, even if they didn't have a biological mother. Then sister-in-law will have a private talk with your grandmother. I'll come over later. Sister-in-law also misses Madame Sun very much. My daughter is presumptuous, so please spend more time with sister-in-law. You don't have to be so polite with me. Although Sister Jia is a married daughter, in my heart, she is the same as before she was married. Jingwan squatted and left. Such a good girl. What a pity. Madam Sun sighed again. Grandma, are you regretting every time you see her? Sunny Jia laughed. When Sister Wan first got engaged, I felt sorry for fifth brother. However, later on, when they got engaged, I directly told Sister Wan that the engagement might be cancelled. The longer I stay in the Luo family, the more I feel that Duke Ding's mansion is not a place for people to stay. I've already left. How can I bear to see her go in? It's just like it's easy to go from frugal to extravagant, but hard to go from extravagant to frugal. It's not just because of wealth that one's family is extravagant and frugal. If a man makes a mistake in marriage, he can still have another one, but a girl can't. So, I'd rather see fifth brother suffer than Sister Wan fall into a deep mire. How could Madam Sun not understand? But she still reached out and poked Sunny Jia. You're just saying that. You're also a little heartless girl who favors outsiders. It's worth it. Yes, it was worth it. An outsider was worth it, but as her biological mother, she broke her heart. Madam Sun took out the thing she carried with her. Keep this well. What's this? Sunny Jia was curious. She touched the brocade bag and felt that it seemed to be a token. Sunny Jia opened it, and a little bit of gold appeared. Token? What's this for? Why did grandmother give me this? Madam Sun just looked at her without saying anything. However, when Sunny Jia saw the words in the middle, her pupils shrank. She hurriedly put the token back and looked at Madam Sun in shock. Her lips trembled. Grandmother, this thing, is it really what I think it is? Madam Sun nodded. She opened her mouth slightly and spat out 4 words. Death exemption token. No, grandmother. How can there be such a thing now? If I remember correctly, it was when Emperor Taizu established the Qi Yuan. Sunny Jia suddenly thought of something and looked a little shocked. There were 4 dukes and 9 marquises. Emperor Taizu not only gave them the Iron Scroll, but also gave each of them a death exemption token. He also said that even if they committed treason, they could use this token to avoid the death penalty. The number of people who could be exempted from the death penalty varied from 1 to 9. And for those whose crimes did not warrant death, they could even be exempted from the crime of their entire family. Therefore, for those whose crimes involved the 9 generations, they could choose to save the lives of some of the main criminals and be exiled. Otherwise, those who deserved death would die, and the rest would be exempted from the crime and become commoners. As long as they had this token in hand, they would not be sentenced to the death penalty, because at that time, those who used the token would definitely be the main culprits who deserved to be killed. The rest were not important. Moreover, each token could be used 3 times. Most importantly, as long as the Qi Yuan was not destroyed, the token would be effective forever. The power of this death exemption token was really too great. When Emperor Taizu gave it away, he was very happy. However, he did not think that it would leave a lot of trouble for his descendants. 4 dukes and 9 marquises, that was 13 tokens. Perhaps they could be exempted from the crime of treason 39 times. Of course, this was only the most ideal situation. In reality, it would definitely not be so. To a certain extent, the death exemption token had actually become a talisman that hastened one's death. In order to eliminate the effect of the death exemption token, as a later emperor, he used a lot of sinister means. For example, he made some important and outstanding descendants of certain families commit the crime of treason. This was actually a relatively gentle means. After all, there were some people who would rather give up an outstanding descendant. The death of the 4 dukes and 9 marquises was a big reason why the death of the 4 dukes and 9 marquises was so fast. It was said that one of the secret reasons why the Ding General Manor could stand until now was that Sun Yijia's grandfather took the initiative to hand over the death exemption token in exchange for something else for the Ding General Manor. The 13 death exemption tokens were taken back one after another. There was only one left, and there was only one chance left. Its influence was almost negligible, and its whereabouts were unknown. Therefore, there was no effort to find it. Sun Yijia did not expect that this thing was in the hands of her grandmother and was given to her. Sun Yijia felt a little wrong. Her emotions seemed to be a little too strong. She quickly took 2 deep breaths to calm herself down. Now this thing is not so taboo. You just keep it. It's best if you don't use it. If one day you need it, then you can use it. Sun Yijia held the death-free gold medallion in her hand. This thing was no longer a hot potato. It was a real life-saving talisman. According to her selfish motives, she naturally wanted to keep it. However, she said, "Grandmother, Ding General Manor should need it more." In fact, she more or less knew the current situation of Ding General Manor. Old Madam Sun shook her head. When the Ding General Manor is really destroyed, it can't be saved by a death exemption token. Moreover, this token is not mine. Naturally, it does not belong to the Ding General Manor. Sun Yijia was puzzled. Where did it come from? Would an outsider casually give this kind of thing away? Old Madam Sun just looked at her and remained silent. Sun Yijia's heart suddenly moved. She tentatively asked, "My mother's?" Old Madam Sun nodded. "It is indeed your mother's. Grandmother, did you snatch it from her? This kind of good thing, if you want to give it to someone, it should be given to 5th brother." Sun Yijia said the first half of the sentence with a playful smile, but the second half was extremely calm. It could be seen that her mother really did not affect her. She owes you, not only the child, but also the marriage contract with Jin Qinwang. Obviously, she could use the token to make the emperor take back the order. Although this death exemption token, even if he knew who had it, he would not necessarily take it back. However, who let the parents and ancestors have the obsession to take back the token? If they really wanted to use it to cancel the marriage contract, Lu Qingdi would not disagree. Since that is the case, I won't be polite. Younger sister Wan gave her a big gift. It just so happened that she felt that there was nothing she could do to repay her. Although this thing was far from enough, it could at least express her feelings. She would just give it to her. "Yijia, you want to give it away?" Old Madam Sun's golden eyes flashed fiercely. Sun Yijia's expression was very obvious. I want to give it to younger sister Wan." Sun Yijia did not deny it. "If you want to give it to her, then give it to her. In any case, it is already yours. You can do whatever you want with it." Old Madam Sun did not care much about this. The Luo family was very affectionate and righteous. If there really was an accident, no matter who had the token, they would not stand by and do nothing. When Li Hongyuan received the news, he was also quite surprised. The death exemption token. In his previous life, it was something that did not appear until his death. Since it was in the hands of Duke Ding's wife, it was pardonable that she did not take it out when Duke Ding's household was destroyed. But why didn't she take it out to save Sun Yijia and her child? It should be known that at that time, Sun Yijia was married to Li Hongyi. Not to mention whether her life in Prince Kang's household was good or not. But the relationship between mother and daughter was not like now. It was almost cut off. Moreover, according to Sun Yilan's temperament, if he knew the existence of this thing, he would definitely force his mother to take it out. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/66533178. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bikago mobile reading website, bicken.com. Chapter 178. Then in his previous life, where did the gold medallion go? Obviously to Li Hongyuan. It could only be a mystery. However, the emperor was Li Hongyuan. Even if that thing appeared, it would not be of any use. Those who should be killed, he would definitely kill. As for the rest, it was completely up to his own wishes. If he wanted to keep it, he would keep it. If he did not want to keep it, it would be useless for anyone to plead for mercy, let alone an inanimate object. Not to mention that he was disrespectful to his ancestors, using a person who had been dead for God knows how many years to pressure him. Just how naive would a person be to do such a thing? However, in his previous life, there really was such a person who used the laws of his ancestors to tell him that he should not do this, and that should not do that. Then what did he do? He did not do anything to the person who advised him. It seemed that if he was not allowed to do something, he would specifically do it, until no one dared to say anything rashly. Li Hongyuan. He was a tyrant who did not respect the laws of his ancestors. However, if this gold medallion was in the hands of Wan Wan, it would probably be a different story. If she used it well, it would become another trump card. In the current situation, a gold medallion that was not wanted by those in power by any means, even if there was only one chance left, was definitely a delicious cake that people would scramble for like a flock of ducks. With him behind her back, no one could forcefully take it away. If one wanted the gold medallion, how could they not pay the price of blood? However, it was far from a good time to let people know who had the gold medallion. Of course, at the same time, Li Hongyuan would not give Jingwan, and even the Luo family, a chance to use it. If he could not even do this, then he could also go and directly kill the emperor, kill his father, and overthrow the imperial power. Then it would be satisfying to do so. Even though they were in the summer palace for the summer, and there were enough people in the imperial court to handle most of the government affairs, there were still many things that Lu Qingdi needed to deal with. Every day, there were people who rushed to deliver some copied memorials. Although it was less than half of the memorials in the capital, half of them were basically official memorials. There were very few memorials, such as paying respects to the emperor. It could not be helped. After all, he did not trust his son very much. Even if his son did not have any power in his hands, the so-called regent of the country was more of a symbolic meaning. He had to grasp the power in his hands to be at ease, and he could not cut off the affairs of the world just because he left the capital for more than 2 months. However, he was still struggling bitterly. He was more tolerant to the officials who followed him. Under the circumstances that there was no important matter, they only needed to go to the roll call next afternoon, or show their faces in front of Lu Qingdi. Therefore, during this period, most of the officials were very idle. Of course, because the summer palace was close, they had to be on call in case of an emergency. Speaking of the summer palace in Qingda, because of the pleasant climate, many flowers and trees grew quite well. In the free time, Luo Peishan could not help but start to fiddle with them again. Such a great opportunity, of course, he would pull Jingwan together. Although this kind of thing was quite common in the capital, there were fewer opportunities after all. Therefore, Jingwan followed Luo Peishan out of the door. Luo Peishan was very familiar with the summer palace, the courtyard built by the summer palace, and the places within a radius of 10 miles with famous flowers and rare plants. In addition to the plants that were specially planted, the wild flowers and trees were actually the most important. About 3 or 4 miles to the west of the summer palace, there was a valley that was not very big. However, there was a waterfall that was not very grand and spectacular, but because of its excellent geographical location, it could reflect light for a long time and look particularly charming. Such a small waterfall might not even be considered a waterfall, but it made Jingwan stand at the bottom of the stone pool and look up for a long time. There were all kinds of flowers and trees in the surroundings. They were not very luxuriant, but all of them were full of vitality, including the cliff. The few small pine trees were trying their best to stretch out their branches. Because of the impact of the water vapor and the blowing of the wind, they were like jumping elves. Beautiful. Lass, do you like it here? Luo Peishan saw that she was lost in thought, and was not in a hurry to ask her to leave. Yes, I like it. I like it very much. Jingwan nodded. If there are no accidents, we will be here for more than 2 months. If you like it, you can come and see it every day. Jingwan was speechless. No matter how beautiful the scenery was, there was no reason to see it every day. Luo Peishan did not seem to see her expression. He stroked his beard and said with deep feelings, "When it comes to beautiful scenery, one's state of mind will definitely be different. Different people accompany you, so your perception will definitely be different. Lass, you can have different people accompany you every few days. I believe that even if you see the same scenery every day, It will still be beautiful in a different way. It will definitely not be boring. Jingwan was speechless again. Grandfather, you were a master of literature, but you changed to a master of philosophy in a second. There was really no need for that. Grandfather, since you said so, I can take grandmother to see it. She can change her clothes today and wear the same clothes tomorrow. It will definitely be a novel experience. It was a pity that there were only a few samples of clothes. As the saying went, no matter how many changes there were, it did not deviate from the origin. It was not as varied as it was in her previous life. However, when she thought of her grandparents wearing such strange clothes, the image was too not beautiful. She quickly threw away the imagination. Last, this suggestion is not bad. You should take your grandmother out to see it more often. Jingwan looked at him again. Speaking of which, where was the restraint of scholarly officials? At such an old age, taking a young lady with him was called romantic, but his heart was not old. Taking an old lady with him was called, well, it was called a loving couple, loving each other until their hair turned white. Jingwan always felt that she had inadvertently been shown a face of affection by her own grandfather, and was stuffed with a mouthful of dog food. In Jingwan's view, this old couple had long lost their passion. However, they had helped each other in difficult times, and a tacit understanding between each other with a glance or a gesture. Perhaps it would not make people blush and their hearts beat faster, but it would definitely make people feel sweet in their hearts. Between her grandfather and grandmother, when they were young, there were also times when there was a gap between them. However, when they were old, they were able to get to where they were today. They were not strangers like many people. The old master would walk around the backyard, as if he was just going through the motions, then turn around and hug the young lady to prove that he was still strong despite his age. As for his wife, she ate vegetarian and prayed to Buddha. Her heart was as still as water, and her six senses were pure. It was very rare. Unfortunately, when she died in her previous life, she did not drink Mengpo's soup. She had a body of bad habits. Someone had interfered in her marriage, so there was no possibility of growing old together. So sometimes, ignorance is bliss? Well, this kind of ignorance, this kind of bliss, Jingwan did not want it. She was a little sad and a little jealous of her grandparents. Then, she threw all these thoughts to the back of her mind. Grandfather, let's go. Why are you walking so fast? Slow down, slow down. You're a young lady, so be more reserved. Luo Peishan hurriedly shouted from behind. Jingwan was in a good mood and full of energy. At this moment, even if she wanted to be reserved, she could not be reserved. It was rare for her to indulge herself. In any case, they were her people, so it did not matter. Therefore, Jingwan jumped faster along the stream formed by the stone pool. In the blink of an eye, her figure was covered by the dense trees. Luo Peishan was even a little dumbfounded. Speaking of which, this jumping like a little monkey, was this really his good grandson who had good self-restraint, a fake temperament, and a steady and magnanimous manner? However, when he saw the two servant girls who followed her also jumped a few times on the big and small stones by the stream, and quickly disappeared, Luo Peishan came back to his senses. He patted his old heart, and hurriedly ordered the two guards to follow. Although these places had been cleared long ago, and there would not be any ferocious birds or beasts, there was still no lack of accidents. Grandfather, come quickly. From the sound of that voice, it seemed that she was already farther away. His granddaughter, who had never caused anyone to worry about her, suddenly became an exceptionally headache for Luo Peishan. Could it be that the saying, those who do not commit crimes, when they commit crimes, it will be a big deal? His good grandson had always been gentle and quiet. Now that she was gentle and quiet, she directly turned into a wild monkey? At the very least, she should have informed him in advance, so that he could be mentally prepared. Luo Peishan wanted to follow, so naturally he walked in a hurry. Seeing this, his manservant trembled with fear and hurriedly supported him. It was said that Luo Peishan's arms and legs could not jump randomly on stones. Even his manservant would not be able to do so. Trembling slightly, Luo Peishan made a detour from the side, and along the way, he had to push aside the branches that blocked the way. When Luo Peishan appeared in Jingwan's line of sight, his hair was somewhat disheveled, and he looked quite embarrassed. This was also the first time that Jingwan had seen Luo Peishan like this. Therefore, she looked at Luo Peishan without any trace of politeness and smiled. Luo Peishan hurriedly tidied up his appearance and said angrily, "Bad girl, who did this to you?" Jingwan washed the fruit in her hands again, and jumped along a few stones. Seeing this, Luo Peishan's old heart pounded fiercely again. He kept urging her to slow down. Jingwan handed over a green-skinned fruit in her hand. "Grandfather, don't worry, I know what I'm doing." As she spoke, she took a bite of another fruit. "It tastes good, grandfather, quickly try it." Then she took 2 more bites. Luo Peishan frowned disapprovingly. "How can you eat fruits in the wild?" "It's okay. I snatched this food from the monkeys' mouths. I saw that they liked to eat it, so it's definitely fine for a person to eat it." Jingwan smiled a little slyly. "Nonsense, you're a well-bred young lady. How can you snatch food from animals? This is simply, ugh." Jingwan stuffed the fruit into his mouth. The fruit wasn't big to begin with, and with this, half of it went into his mouth. "Long-winded." She giggled. With his mouth stuffed open, he looked a little stupid. Luo Peishan quickly took it off. "You're getting more and more outrageous, girl." Jingwan ignored him and turned to walk away. As she walked, she turned back to tease him. "I heard from grandmother that grandfather, when you were young, you did a lot of immoral things. You can't be like grandfather, who only allows the state officials to set fires, but not the common people to light lamps." Luo Peishan's old face turned red. Speaking of the immoral things he did, they were all before he married his wife. How did his first wife know about it? And now his granddaughter even knew about it. However, his teeth had just bitten through the skin of the fruit, and it seemed to taste good. So he took a bite. Digression. https://www.bicon.com/11/11807/66533179. HTML chapter error. Click here to report, no registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicon.com. Bicon.com mobile edition website, bicon.com. Chapter 179. The texture was crisp and sweet. Luo Peishan felt that he liked it very much after chewing a few more mouthfuls. "Girl, where did you pick it? Do you have more?" "It was human nature to eat more if you liked it. Didn't I tell you to grab it from the monkey's mouth?" At this age, it was rare to have good teeth. The main reason was that grandfather and grandmother were good. Seeing them eat well, the younger generation would be happy. What about the 3-year-old child of a grandfather? It looks fresh. The skin is not broken at all. There is no mark of being wiped. Such a capable monkey is so stupid. How could a girl like you snatch it without any effort? Girl, don't belittle monkeys like this. Be careful that monkeys will come to you in groups. Luo Peishan laughed. The little girl was too tender to tease him. "Where are your 2 maids?" There were maids guarding the courtyard. There was no reason for her to do it herself. "Master, the servants are here." Baishao and Sister Hei came around from behind the bushes. Sister Hei was holding 2 branches with the fruit in her hand, and Baishao was holding a bag with a large leaf in her hand. It could be seen that the sisters had a rich harvest in this short period of time, because they already knew what kind of place they were heading to before they left. Jingwan and her 2 servants were dressed simply, and tried their best to be as neat as possible. Even Jingwan only wore a string of Buddhist prayer beads on her wrist. As for other accessories, whether it was on her head, body, or even earrings, she didn't have a single one. The 2 sisters climbed the tree to pick fruits and stood there, looking very pretty. All right, the one who was useless was only this old fellow. Perhaps the weak little servant beside him was also included. Even if that was the case, a group of strong, thick-skinned, and coarse-grown men are here. How could they let a delicate little girl do such a thing? The 2 sisters were a little speechless. Could they say that they volunteered themselves? Moreover, as maids they were so immature. Would they be thought that they couldn't serve the girl well, and be driven away. He couldn't help but feel angry and nervous. Jingwan didn't care. She smiled and said, "Grandfather, Bai Xiao and Sister He were born in a family of hunters. They are used to living in the mountains since they were young. If it weren't for the accident, they might still be the same as before. Climbing trees to fish for eggs, picking fruits, breaking firewood, setting traps all over the mountains and wilderness, drawing bows and arrows to hunt prey, catching fish and crabs in the water. These were all child's play, and they were exceptionally carefree and happy." Luo Peishan understood. If it was due to the slow growth of one's temperament would gradually settle down. Occasionally, one would feel nostalgic when thinking about that kind of life in the past, and would basically not have similar thoughts. However, if one was not a child and cut off one's original life due to external reasons, and suddenly changed from one environment to another, perhaps one would develop an obsession with the past. Normally, one might be calm and collected, but once there was an opportunity, it was inevitable that one would become restless and unbearable. The little girl Luo Peishan had never had any evil thoughts, so she waved her hand. "There are no outsiders today, just play as you wish." They were all from the Luo family. If they played wildly, they wouldn't be afraid of ruining their image. As for the people sent by Jin Qinhuang, since they entered the Luo family's gate, then naturally they would be surnamed Luo. It didn't matter if they informed the original master. "If you dislike my good grandson for being boorish, then don't marry him if you have the ability." Therefore, Luo Daren's resentment towards a certain person was still very deep. Sister He showed a pleasantly surprised expression. Even Bai Xiao's eyes couldn't help but brighten. "Playing is playing, take it easy. Don't hurt yourself." Looking at those hands, it was clear that she had been pampered for a long time. Seeing the people around her happy, her own mood couldn't help but improve. Come, wash the fruits. Everyone have a taste." Bai Xiao went to pick some large leaves and washed them together with the fruits. This was natural spring water, so there was no need to worry about it being dirty. Then, everyone who came out had a share. The others were fine, but Luo Peishan, that manservant, was somewhat flattered. "Grandfather, did you mistreat him on a daily basis?" Jingwan ate while smiling impolitely, even if these were all family. But in any case, they were still a group of men. "Can't you be a little bit more reserved?" Sweeping a glance, they were tactful. Each and every one of them was immersed in eating their own things. From beginning to end, their eyes didn't wander around, let alone stare unscrupulously. Not to mention the original guards, their character was not bad. As the people sent by an E, they knew how to be powerful. After a round of ruthless brainwashing, they knew the way of survival very well. Luo Peishan fiercely glared at the manservant beside him. Useless thing, losing face for him. A grown man. How could he follow him and see some of the world? In the end, he wasn't as generous as a girl who was smaller than him. Really, he had been raised in vain. The manservant was baffled by Luo Peishan's glare. However, because of Jingwan's words, he was somewhat embarrassed. Except for this little episode, the atmosphere was warm and harmonious. After eating, they continued to follow the direction of the stream. With Luo Peishan's permission, although Jingwan couldn't behave atrociously everywhere like Bai Xiao and He Mei, and after all, she was only exercising all year round and was still lacking in some skills, this didn't prevent her from having fun. From this side of the valley, she suddenly saw something on the opposite cliff and jumped over. In short, from the left cliff to the right cliff, and then to the left cliff, there was a pile of messy things, such as fungi, fruits, and even herbs. The result was that she seemed to have accidentally forgotten the reason why she came here. Because so far, she had stayed in the valley for more than 2 hours, and hadn't dug up a single flower seedling. Or it could be said that Jingwan didn't pay attention to it at all. Although the purpose of today's trip was most likely to be ruined, Luo Peishan wasn't angry at all. Compared to those things, he really preferred to hear his good granddaughter's wanton laughter and see her in high spirits. However, the culprit who drove the animals in the valley was still laughing complacently. Luo Peishan even wanted to cover his face. He couldn't bear to look at his good granddaughter. However, When he thought of the things he did at her age, Lord Luo coughed lightly and calmed down. That was nothing compared to what his granddaughter was doing. It was not worth mentioning at all. Also, because Jingwan and the others explored a wider range, they found some things that others hadn't discovered before. In fact, there were quite a lot of people in this place, including Emperor Licheng. At the bottom of the valley, on one side of the cliff, there was a paved bluestone road. It was rare to see a situation where only a family came out. Perhaps some ministers or girls came out together. Because of their status, they naturally wouldn't do anything out of line. However, there were quite a lot of people walking along the bluestone road. It seemed lively, but in fact, the atmosphere was similar to a group of people strolling in a garden. It was very boring. Probably because he had long been tired of this way, Luo Peishan basically walked along the stream. Large and small stones were scattered and intertwined with each other. This road was definitely not easy to walk on. However, even if he walked at a snail's speed, Luo Peishan was still in high spirits. Jingwan and the others kept crossing, so he didn't worry at all that he couldn't keep up with them. At some point, Jingwan suddenly stopped. Baishao, Sister Hei, listen. Is there a cat's meow? A cat's meow? The two sisters stopped and listened carefully. Both of them were martial artists and had once traversed the wilderness, so they were very sensitive to the movements of the wind and grass in the wilderness. They didn't notice it earlier. After all, even if they were just playing around, they didn't forget their job. Most of their attention was on Jingwan, so when they paid attention, they immediately found their target. It was under two intertwined stones. The sound was weak, and there were bloodstains outside. It was probably injured. Sister Hei stretched out her head to take a look. Miss, it's a mountain fox. Its leg is injured. Mountain fox? Wasn't that a leopard cat? Quickly take it out. The two sisters had seen mountain civet before. Although it was similar in size to a house cat, it was only similar. It was extremely ferocious and wild. Even if it was just a cub, its claws were very sharp. Ordinary ropes couldn't tie it at all. It could bite off the ropes in minutes. As far as Jingwan knew, leopard cats could even bite off iron chains. Therefore, she told Sister Hei to be careful and not hurt herself. Sister Hei was obviously good at dealing with mountain foxes. She easily caught the little thing. Is it still a cub? It looked so small that Sister Hei could easily hold it with two hands. It was mainly silver gray. Its chest, abdomen, and the inside of the limbs were white. The spots were black. It looked furry and cute. However, although it was cute, it was very restless. Its claws were waving, and it wanted to turn its head to bite. Unfortunately, it was useless. Its eyes were also exceptionally alert. It's indeed a cub. It's at most 2 months old. However, if it continues to struggle, the wound on its leg will burst open. Baishao said, "What should we do? Is there no way to quiet it down?" Unexpectedly encountering such a little thing and seeing it suffer, she couldn't bear it. Moreover, Jingwan actually had a slight fur fetish. Miss, Sister Blackie and I have killed a lot of prey in the past, including mountain raccoons. Our father said that these little things are very intelligent. Those who have been hunters usually can't keep them alive. They even reject us when we get close. Jingwan understood. Although she didn't know the origin of this saying, Jingwan still tried to reach out and touch it. It was very amazing that it really settled down a lot. Moreover, its claws tried to reach out to Jingwan. Its small eyes also stared straight at her. Jingwan felt her little heart tremble slightly. She reached out to hold it. Sister Hei didn't refuse, but still controlled its claws to prevent it from suddenly hurting Jingwan. Jingwan was careful not to touch its injured leg. She held it with one hand and pinched its ear with the other. Then, she moved her hand along its head and gently stroked its body. She even comforted it softly. It was really useful. Baishao, go get some medicine and bandage its leg. Because they were out in the wild, the corresponding things were naturally well prepared. Jingwan kept comforting it. Perhaps it felt her kindness. The vigilance in its eyes faded little by little, and even its sharp claws were retracted. Jingwan was very surprised and asked Sister Hei to let go. Then, except for the injured leg, the other 3 legs were retracted into Jingwan's arms. It looked quiet and harmless. This mountain fox likes you very much. Jingwan smiled and her eyes curved. It was obvious that the little thing's dependence made Jingwan very happy. So happy. The sudden voice made Jingwan jump in surprise. But because of that familiar voice, Jingwan immediately turned her head. On the Bluestone Road less than 2 zhang away, there was a man dressed simply but still unbelievably handsome. His eyes were as bright as stars as he focused on Jingwan. Wangya, why are you also here? Li Hongyuan gently hooked his lips. Because you are here. Even though she knew what kind of person he was, Jingwan's heartbeat still couldn't stop speeding up, and her face was somewhat hot. His sweet talk skills were really maxed out. When he opened his mouth, it was so unbearable. However, this bastard he shouldn't be so flirtatious. Would it kill him to speak properly? He wouldn't die if he spoke properly, because Jin Qinhuang was just telling the truth. He was sincere. Because Jingwan was here he came. Li Hongyuan took a few steps forward, crouched down at the edge of the Bluestone Road, and extended his hand to her. Jingwan hesitated for a moment before walking forward. The road was at the position of her chest. Wangya, how about you wait a moment? Li Hongyuan snatched the mountain fox from Jingwan's arms. That place was close to the position of Jingwan's chest. Speaking of which, he still had that honor, but a beast took the lead. Li Hongyuan grabbed it by the scruff of its neck and raised it in front of his eyes, looking at it with slightly narrowed eyes. The little thing first kicked around, and this time, all the fur on its body stood up. Its tail also stiffly stuck up, and it kept making threatening sounds. But in Jingwan's ears, it sounded somewhat pitiful. Wangya, it's injured you. Li Hongyuan raised his hand and threw it behind him. Jingwan was startled. Just when she thought that it would meet with misfortune, that small body was firmly caught by the guard behind. Jingwan obviously breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing that Jingwan cared so much about the beast, Li Hongyuan's heart was naturally unhappy. He actually wanted to directly slaughter that beast. Speaking of which, it was so ugly, there was no value in skinning it. But who let his wifey like it? Come up. This time, Jingwan didn't refuse. She reached out and put it in his palm. It was still the same touch. It was reasonable to say that it was difficult for a lady from a respectable family to lift her foot and use it as leverage to climb up. It looked very crude, okay? Speaking of which, to get on a carriage, there were 2 ladders. But as her fiancé, he didn't care, so what else could other people say? So, even if Luo Peishan happened to see it, he only chose to watch silently. No matter what this living king of hell did, you only need to watch and don't need to talk. He didn't do anything to his granddaughter. So, Jingwan just stood beside Li Hongyuan and went to look at the little fellow. Li Hongyuan's eyes were covered with hostility. Originally, he wanted to reach out his claws to Jingwan, but when he met her eyes, he suddenly shrank back. Jingwan was stunned. She was being despised just by turning around. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/66531180. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bikaga mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 180. Jingwan didn't give up and wanted to continue reaching out to hug it, but this time, the little thing directly burrowed into the guard's arms. As if Jingwan was a great demon king, and the person hugging it was its salvation. It didn't even care about its injured leg. Seeing that its injured leg had obviously burst open again, Jingwan hurriedly withdrew her hand, and even took 2 steps back. Then, the little thing that was looking at her with its little eyes stopped struggling. Those pitiful little eyes in Jingwan's eyes seemed to be extremely happy. Jingwan was heartbroken. Was she so unwelcomed? However, it was clearly fine before, so it definitely wasn't her fault. Thus, those slightly accusing eyes fell on the guard. It's all your fault. At this time, the gaze directed at the little thing fell on Ani. Ani complained incessantly in his heart, and his body stiffened. Miss Luo, great aunt, the culprit is behind you. Don't look at me. If you continue to look, Master will definitely chop me up. And he wished he could turn around and run away, but he didn't dare. He could only lower his eyebrows and restrain his eyes, standing motionlessly. Fortunately, Jingwon only looked for a while before withdrawing her gaze. She looked at the little thing with a bit of reluctance, but didn't persist. She turned back and let Baishao treat the little thing's wound. Li Hongyuan reached out and touched Jingwon's face. It's that little bastard who doesn't know what's good for him. Jingwon avoided his hand and secretly rolled her eyes at him. There were so many people. Even if you were a prince, you should follow the rules. Her grandfather was still watching from the side. Moreover, once this kind of matter was exposed, the one whose reputation would always be damaged would only be the woman. Even if this matter was not known to outsiders, she felt that this matter shouldn't be known to outsiders. Li Hongyuan didn't push his luck and withdrew his hand. If you like it, I'll get someone to get it for you from other places. Kittens and puppies, any breed is fine. If you want something else, it's also not a problem. I remember that there's a kind of sweet fox in the northern snowy mountains. Its whole body is snow white and has a strange fragrance. If you want to raise a fierce one, tiger or leopard. Your Highness. Jingwon opened her mouth to interrupt him. It's just fate that allowed me to meet this little fellow. Once it recovers, I will naturally release it back into the wild. I will only treat its wounds and will not bring it away. She was not a beast tamer. She could not afford to raise a tiger or a leopard. She was not a beast tamer. She could not afford to play with these big pets. Li Hongyuan understood what Jingwon meant. Even if she liked someone, she didn't want to forcefully change someone's fate, even if it was just an animal. This kind of heart was actually somewhat incompatible with the majority of the people at present. Not to mention the high officials and nobles. Even the common people knew that if you had power and influence, you were a cut above others. It was a matter of course that you could easily control someone's fate. In his previous life, Li Hongyuan also knew that she wouldn't easily kill people. It was just that at that time, he only felt that she was exceptionally compassionate. However, after suspecting Jingwon's origin, he became more and more curious about her initial life. However, this wasn't a matter of urgency. One day, he would let Jingwon take the initiative to tell him. As for those little animals, since Wanwan liked them, naturally, he would satisfy her. When the time came, he would send them to her hands. How could she be so heartless as to throw them away? However, before sending them to her, she must train them well and raise them in front of her. It didn't matter if they were teased by her. But if they dared to pounce on her, they would have to suffer a little. As a result, Jingwon ended up raising a bunch of pets in the future. As a result, the pets were only allowed to touch and hug them. She was the only one that was not allowed to hug them. Jingwon's mood was extremely depressed. It must be said that those little animals clearly liked her very much. When they saw her, they would rub against her feet. In the end, when she stretched out her hand, the speed at which they ran away was as if Jingwon wanted their lives. Of course, this was a story for the future. Let's not talk about it for now. As long as you're happy, said Li Hongyuan. Jingwon raised her head and looked at him quietly. He spoke so dotingly and was so thoughtful and considerate. Jingwon suddenly wanted to know where his bottom line was. Even if he treated her as a substitute, this word might not be right. He should just be transferring his affection. Under the circumstances of not giving her his true feelings, why not enjoy it? Because she always believed that feelings were mutual. Then, in addition to love, she could treat him as a close family. She could treat him as well as he treated her well. Because of the barrier between men and women, she couldn't do too much to him now. Otherwise it would attract gossip. However, it didn't prevent her from keeping it in her heart until after their wedding. Well, because she didn't give him her love, then she wouldn't have the desire to monopolize him. Then, she wouldn't care about how many women he had. According to what he said just now, as long as he was happy, it was fine. She wouldn't be sad. Jingwon's eyes brightened. She felt that this idea of hers was really too perfect. She didn't need to worry about the purpose of his every time he did something. No matter what he did, what he gave, it would be fine until the day he stopped. Wangya, do you want to come together? I think this place is quite fun. Saying that, She didn't wait for Li Hongyuan to respond and jumped down from the place she came up from. As she walked, she turned her head and said, "Bai Xiao, take care of the little guy's injuries. Whether you take him back to recuperate or release him, you decide." Following that, she smiled and waved at Li Hongyuan. At the age of 22 or 23, in her previous life, many people were still university students. It was the time when they liked to play, although it could be said that the people nowadays were generally precocious, including Jin Qinhuang, who sometimes did things. It seemed a bit willful, even a bit mischievous, but it couldn't be denied that he was a mature man. It didn't matter if he played once in a while. Li Hongyuan naturally felt that Jingwan's attitude towards him was obviously a lot closer. It was no longer that kind of alienation, restraint, and etiquette. If it wasn't that the change was a bit too fast, he would have suspected that he had waited until the clouds parted to see the moon. Looking at the way Jingwan looked at him, it wasn't that he hadn't seen a woman infatuated with him, but it had nothing to do with Wan's eyes. Right now, he still lacked a tacit understanding with Wan. He didn't know what she was thinking. However, being willing to be close to him could be considered a big improvement. Therefore, without hesitation, he directly followed. Except for an E, the other guards all followed. However, because Bai Xiao happened to be close, a burst of girl's fragrance entered his nostrils. It made the big man, who didn't dare to casually find a woman because of his special status, feel a bit strange in his body. He actually wanted to directly give this mountain fox to the other party and quickly leave. However, Bai Xiao said hold tight, so Ani could only continue to stiffen his body. And those brothers who left not only didn't have the code of brotherhood, they also smiled ambiguously at him. These people were destined to not be able to continue to serve their master. They shouldn't expect to marry and have children. Even if they went to the brothel to find a woman, they couldn't do it. If they wanted to marry and have children, there was only one situation: when they were no longer suitable to be a guard, shadow guard. Either they were injured, or as they grew older, they no longer had the ability to do it. Basically, it was the former. If they really encountered that kind of situation, 9 out of 10 of them basically wouldn't be willing to marry a wife. Because their bodies were seriously ill, it meant that their lives wouldn't be long. Thus, why would they want to harm a good girl? However, if the princess consort wanted to find a husband for her personal maidservant, how could the master not fulfill her wish if she fancied him? It wasn't that they used this kind of method to get rid of their current position. In fact, it was more because this group of old bachelors, who were like their master and hadn't had sex before, suddenly had the opportunity to come in contact with a beautiful girl. The person involved might be shy, but the other brothers couldn't help but feel wretched in their hearts. It must be said that everyone around Li Hongyuan was like this. Naturally, it wasn't. There were some special tasks that naturally required special methods. Thus, there were all kinds of special talents. For example, it wasn't normal for there to be experts in the brothel. Because An Yi's body was stiff, he strangled the little fellow. That cry was a bit miserable. Bai Xiao frowned and reached out to pat An Yi. "Why are you holding him so tightly? Loosen up a bit." Then An Yi let go and was scratched by the little fellow. Not to mention that his clothes were directly torn, he also felt a stabbing pain. Clearly, his arm also suffered a calamity. Unsurprisingly, Bai Xiao raised her head and glanced at him. It was clearly a very dull glance. But An Yi always felt that her left eye had trash written on it, and her right eye had thing written on it. He really felt that he had lost a lot of face. The people who had already walked far away didn't care about the undercurrent between the two people. Under Jingwan's leadership, they continued their exploration. Of course, Jingwan didn't forget to turn around and remind her grandfather to be careful. Li Hongyuan also finally gave Luo Daren a look. His eyes were like an ancient well without ripples. On the contrary, Luo Daren was indeed furious. Especially since he once said that he wouldn't let his good granddaughter lose her chastity. At most, he would just kiss and hug. Mother, wasn't kissing and hugging enough? How many people didn't even see each other before they got married? Therefore, few people looked forward to marrying their daughters and granddaughters into the imperial family. However, Luo Daren wasn't happy at all. The most important point was that this kind of son-in-law and grandson-in-law couldn't be beaten up. Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan running around like a child, but he didn't say a word. He followed behind her very easily. When she wanted to pick something, and was unable to do it, he would go forward and help her. As a result, Li Hongyuan completely took over Baishao and little sister Hei's work. Whatever Jingwan said was what it was. Wang Ye, look. Isn't that a tea tree up there? Jingwan pulled his arm and said. Li Hongyuan looked down. It was indeed a wild tea tree. It wasn't very big, but it looked verdant and lush. Go get a basket. It was fine before, but this time, Jingwan was scared by his tone. It was halfway up the mountain, and the cliff was steep. Wang Ye, it's too dangerous. This subject's daughter was also a little surprised when she suddenly saw it. I didn't say I wanted to pick it. Aren't there vines on the side? It's easy to go up. It's fine. It's better not. It's really too dangerous. Jingwan shook her head disapprovingly. Li Hongyuan looked at her. Trust me. Jingwan opened her mouth, but couldn't say anything. She had a feeling that he wasn't referring to the current situation. The basket was quickly brought over. Master, why don't you let this subordinate go down? As a bodyguard, of course, he didn't want to see him in danger. Li Hongyuan turned around and glanced at him indifferently. Say this again when you know how to pick tea. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/66533181. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 181. Just as Li Hongyuan himself said, because of the vines, it wasn't difficult to climb up. Not only was it not difficult, he also maintained a natural and unrestrained grace. Purely in front of his wife, he was a male peacock showing off his gorgeous feathers at all times. Of course, because it was done too naturally, no one thought about it. They only felt that this person was born to be like this. That tea tree was on a protruding rock, and there should be a lot of soil on it. As long as one went up and was careful, there shouldn't be any hidden danger. However, even so, it still made people tremble with fear. There was no other way. The other party's identity was too honorable and couldn't tolerate the slightest bit of mishap. Wang Ye, be careful. Jingwan couldn't help but remind him from below. Li Hongyuan smiled. Don't worry. Then he waved his hand, and the bodyguard threw the basket up. Li Hongyuan acted very quickly. For the time being, they still couldn't see the quality of the tea leaves. But based on his technique, it really looked like something. Jingwan couldn't help but think, was this really Wang Ye? And his bodyguard more or less had the same thought. Luo Peishan, who rushed over later, was also a little confused. Who could tell him what was going on? I just saw that there was a wild tea tree above, so. Jingwan explained rather helplessly. So, a single word from my dear grandson, and you, Prince, are willing to risk your life to fulfill it? Should he blame him for not cherishing himself and causing trouble for others? Or should he be gratified that he cared so much about his good grandson? Looking at the prince who was quietly looking up to pick the tea, even if Jin Qinhuang had a notorious record. But to sincerely do this, there should be very few women who wouldn't be moved. Alas, a grown girl can't be kept at home. Wang Ye, be careful. Jingwan suddenly took 2 steps forward and exclaimed. His bodyguard also uniformly moved forward, as if preparing to be a cushion. Luo Peishan subconsciously raised his head. Someone seemed to have slipped and his body swayed. If his endurance was slightly weaker, there really was a danger of his heart exploding. Your Highness, why don't you come down first? Jingwan tried to persuade him. Good girl. Come down when you're done. It's not much, just a little while. I didn't pay attention just now. I'll be careful. Li Hongyuan said to Jingwan warmly while his hands didn't stop moving. His tone and attitude were simply outrageous. Jingwan decided that when he came down, she must hold him firmly. She did not believe that he would do something that would stimulate people's hearts. It was tiring to meet such a willful and reckless person. Fine, since she was the cause, she chose to shut up. Jin Qinhuang refused to come down, so he could only wait for him to finish picking, and then use the vines to put down the basket. The one who knew more about tea here was Sir Luo, because he had been an official in the area where tea was produced. He knew the whole process of making tea very well, and he could be considered an expert. Using his hands to pick up a few tender tea tips, he was already prepared to see a pile of too horrible to look at tea tips. But the truth was the complete opposite. Not only were the tea tips similar to each other, they were just right, and the technique was also completely correct. Seeing that Jin Qinhuang had already come down, Luo Peishan's eyes were a bit subtle. The truth was there was nothing that a certain person couldn't do. He not only knew how to do it, he also did it very well. Therefore, when it came to pleasing the Luo family's third young lady, everyone else had to step aside. Seeing that Jin Qinhuang had safely landed, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. "Your Highness, quickly go wash your hands," Jingwan said. Li Hongyuan naturally nodded his head in response. Then Luo Peishan came back to his senses. Looking at his grandson again, his eyes were a bit subtle. How difficult it was to deal with Jin Qinhuang. These people were very clear. Lu Chengdi, as his father, had a headache, but in front of his grandson, he was so obedient and well-behaved. Then one day, would his grandson be able to tie up this living king of hell? Getting rid of the #1 scourge for Qi Yuan, it was truly a cause for celebration. No, Luo Darren hurriedly shook off the thoughts in his mind. Luo Peishan picked up a tea tip and put it in his mouth, chewing it. He could almost conclude that the final product of this wild tea would be comparable to the best tea. Then he looked up at the tea tree, somewhat eager to move. If this tea was cultivated, would there be a new kind of tea? But when he thought about how some things would not be the same if they were changed, he dispelled this idea. After that, Jingwan, as she thought before, pulled Li Hongyuan and didn't let him do anything that specifically challenged people's hearts. But fortunately, after that, at most, it would be climbing the tree. This point, Jingwan felt that even she could do it. With Li Hongyuan's guards, even if Bai Xiao and He Mei wanted to do something, it would be snatched away before they could do it. The two sisters couldn't play properly and expressed their unhappiness. Jingwan, on the other hand, felt like she was watching a play. "Wangya, these guards of yours don't seem to be right, ah." Their vigor was a bit excessive, ah. Small things like sesame seeds, they would scramble to do it. There was even a tendency to fight. Li Hongyuan, on the other hand, was very leisurely. A grown man can't be kept at home. If he stays, he stays, he stays. And if he stays, he will become an enemy. Jingwan stumbled and almost fell. She looked strangely at Li Hongyuan. A certain person even nodded as if he was serious. Jingwan really wanted to say, "Wangya, you're nodding carelessly. Do you really understand what I mean?" However, when she looked at the guards who were almost petrified because of Li Hongyuan's words, she suddenly felt that these guards of Prince Jin were really miserable. Then, she inexplicably followed Li Hongyuan's words and looked at Bai Xiao and He Mei. She had 2 beautiful maids, and there were a few others who didn't come with her. If there were no accidents, she would get married after her coming-of-age ceremony next year. It was not that the Luo family didn't want to keep her, but a certain prince had already become a young man. Before that, only Qing Zhu would get married. Moreover, if he didn't like anyone, Qing Zhu would also be part of the dowry. In fact, it was a good choice for the mistress's dowry, made to marry her husband's capable men. For the mistress, it was also one of the ways to gain a firm foothold. However, as the prince's guards, most of them were of good birth. Would they marry a maid who was born a slave? Qi Yuan also clearly stated that people of good birth and low birth were not allowed to marry. Even if their slave status was removed before they got married, they would still be looked down upon most of the time. "Isn't it a good match for you to marry your personal maid to one of my subordinates?" Wang Ye is joking. Li Hongyuan smiled noncommittally. This group of people under him, if he really let them marry the people around Wan Wan, he was afraid that they would fight over it. Which one of them didn't know that Jing Wan treated the people around her well? When Wan Wan entered Jin Qinhuang Fu, she was the one who held the absolute power. TSK, not to mention the head maidservants who served close to her. Even the second and third-ranked maidservants would fight to marry her. Of course, those people wouldn't be those close to him fighting over her. In such a big Jin Qinhuang Fu, there were hundreds of servants. There are too many monks and too little gruel. Be smart, don't say that I, as your master, didn't give you a chance. The group of guards looked at each other in dismay. Then what their master meant was right? Thus, after that, Bai Xiao and He Mei's sides were not quiet anymore. Jingwan's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Were these really the group of guards with a poker face? They were clearly amusing people who were trying to curry favor, okay? Jingwan actually wanted to say, why didn't you learn a few moves in front of your master? Wangya, the maids by my side are also young and fair ladies. Don't worry, they know what they are doing, and won't do anything overboard. Now they are all on the same side, so they won't damage their reputation and won't implicate you. Luo Daren suddenly snorted. Like master, like subordinate. They are of the same origin. Li Hongyuan was very thick-skinned. Benwang's subordinates act like outsiders, so Benwang doesn't need to mingle. Speaking of which, Lord Luo was originally quite happy, but ever since a certain someone appeared, he felt that it was incomparably painful to the eyes. Even if that certain someone did not do anything to his good grandson, at his age, he still felt embarrassed, and this was with him. Then, without the Luo family's elders, how much would his good grandson be bullied? Jingwan was embarrassed. She glared at Li Hongyuan, opened her mouth, and sent him 2 words with her lips. Shut up. Lass, come here. Grandfather can't walk anymore. Help grandfather. Knowing that it was an excuse, Li Hongyuan glanced at the servant who was in charge of serving him. However, Jingwan quickly tugged at him. Her meaning was obvious. Shut up, shut up. Then, she quickly walked to Luo Daren's side and held his arm. Luo Daren glanced at Li Hongyuan with some pride. His expression was so good that Jingwan saw it, and couldn't help but twitch the corner of her mouth. He was like a child who had won a candy fight. It was not ordinary childish. Luo Daren's image. Even so, there was still someone causing trouble. TSK, I can keep it for a while, but I can't keep it for a lifetime. I can keep it before marriage, but can I keep it after marriage? His casual words made Luo Daren so angry that he almost vomited blood. He almost couldn't control his temper and spat. However, if Luo Daren was angered, even if he was a prince, he would not let it go so easily. Then Luo Daren's sage's teachings was activated again. After speaking for a long time, he saw that Li Hongyuan seemed to be speechless like the others. He stroked his beard proudly. Jingwan didn't know what words to use to describe it. However, according to her little understanding of a certain someone, it was impossible for him to be finished like this. Even if he was temporarily defeated, he would probably find another way to make up for it. However, it was obvious that everyone had underestimated Li Hongyuan. Is Luo Daren done? Then it's this prince's turn to speak. Thus, in the same way as Luo Daren, he cited the classics, the words of the ancient sages, and added his own fallacies. It was a long and eloquent speech without any repetition. Whatever Luo Peishan reprimanded him just now, he returned it 3 times over. Those who didn't know would think that he was a famous scholar, or the very young, handsome, and confident kind. You. Luo Daren pointed at him with a trembling finger. This bastard hit it too well. It was fine if he was scheming, but his knowledge was also so good. How could he let others live? Digression. https://www.bigin.com/11/11807/66531183. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bigin.com. Bigin.com mobile version reading website, Bigin.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.